tonight's planning board meeting, thank you, Chief, to order. Eileen, would you kindly read the opening statement?
Yes. Planning Board meeting Thursday, September 5th. I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open, adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 4th, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Boyle?
Present.
Mr. Dorado?
Here.
Mr. Husser?
Here.
Chief Kudrick?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Here.
Mr. Seaman has been excused. Mr. Everett?
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell has been excused. Chairman Nash?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and our troops, both home and abroad. Chief, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, moving down on the agenda. First thing is there are 4 ordinances that had their first reading by the council, and will have their second reading at the September 10th meeting. So we have to act on those ordinances and vote whether they or not they are consistent with our master plan. So the first ordinance is O-1942. It amends Chapter 8, entitles Affordable Housing. Do I have a motion that that ordinance is consistent with our master plan? Substantially consistent. Thank you.
Chairman.
I'll second.
That's Mr. Nicastro, and Mr. Tannenhouse is the second.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nicastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next one is ordinance O-19-43. It amends Article 8, entitled Zones, creating a new section 188-84.2, entitled Moderate and Low Income Housing Zone 12, to be known as ML12. Do I have a motion that this ordinance is substantially compliant and consistent with our master plan?
Motion to accept.
Mr. Boyle, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nicastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Third ordinance is ordinance O-19-44. It amends Article 10, entitled Zones, creating a new section 188-84.3, entitled Moderate and Low Income Housing Zone 13, to be known as ML-13. Do Do I have a motion that this ordinance is consistent with our master plan, substantially consistent with our master plan?
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
Nacastro? Mr. Boyle is the second.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And the last one is ordinance O-19-45. It amends Article 10 entitled Zones, creating a new section 188-84 point, we left something off.
I think it's 84.4.
Okay,
I
let's
have
say,
it here, so I can verify it if you want.
yeah, let's do that before we motion it.
80, hold on, they're not in order. It is 84.4.
Okay, so it's creating a new section, 188-84.4, entitled Moderate and Low Income Housing Zone 14, to be known as ML-14. Do I have a motion that this ordinance is substantially consistent with our master plan? So moved. Mr. Schneider, second,
Second.
please. Mr. Boyle is the second.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to go on to memorialization of resolutions. The first one is case number SP 1009A, Par Golf LLC. It's a resolution granting amended preliminary and final major site plan approval. Eligible voters are Mr. Boyle, Mr. Dorado, Mr. Huza, Chief Kundrick, Mr. Tannenhouse, and myself. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second it.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes,
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
thank you. Next one is case number SP 1041A, Smith Family Properties. It's a resolution granting submission waivers. Eligible voters, Mr. Boyle, Mr. Dorado, Mr. Kuza, Chief Kundrick, and myself. Do I have a motion approving this resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
Thank you. Next one is case number SP 1065, Tesla, Inc. It's a resolution granting submission waivers. Eligible voters, Mr. Boyle, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Everett, and myself. Do I have? Mr.
Second.
Schneider made the motion to memorialize it. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Everett seconded it. Gotta do something.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes,
Motion carries, resolutions memorialized.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on now. We're going to go into the review of submission waivers. Case number SD 2987, DNR Management LLC. It's a submission waiver for a minor subdivision. Application of DNR Management LLC, and as applicant, and Zev Spira as owner, seeking minor subdivision approval with ancillary variance relief to remove all existing site improvements and subdivide the property into 3 new residential lots, which would be developed with 2-story, single-family dwellings with access from Lakewood Farmingdale Road, which is County Road 547, including on-site turnaround areas on premises known as Block 37, Lot lots 59, 60, 62, 64, and 66. The address is 1022 Lakewood Farmingdale Road, which is County Road 547, and Maida Lane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Todd Cohen for the applicant, DNR Management LLC.
All right, Mr. Cohen, as you know, is our procedure. I'll call upon Ms. Newman, our engineer, to comment on the applicability of the submission waiver request.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, the submission waivers are specifically outlined at the bottom of page 3 of our report. The applicant's engineer did submit some supplemental information, so the only waiver that they're currently seeking is item 17, which is the descriptions, meets and bounds for easements, covenants, and deed restrictions, and they have agreed that those items would be submitted if the board acted favorably upon the application. So with that, I take no exception to the granting of the waivers for the purposes of deeming this application complete.
Just put on the record, Mr. Cohen, you do agree with the representation that you would comply if there was a favorable vote?
Yes,
on-
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, okay.
So just to be clear, we're only talking about item 17, the written description, including meets and bounds for all easements, covenants, and deed restrictions?
That's correct.
Okay.
All the other waivers requested have been satisfied, correct?
Yes, the information has been
Have
submitted.
been eliminated, yeah. Does the board have any questions? If none, can I have a motion to approve the request for the submission waiver?
So moved.
Mr. Nacastro, second, please.
Second.
Mr. Boyle?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next, moving on to applications before the board. First one is case number SD 2909F. Matt Lattori, Shepherd Estates. It's a extension of time request, application of Matt Lattori as applicant and owner seeking 2 consecutive one-year extensions of time on final subdivision approval for premises known as Block 2, Lot 5, Ramtown, Greenville Road. Counselor.
Good evening, members of the board, board professionals, and members of the public. My name is Jared Pape. I am an attorney with the law firm of Heilbrunn Pape. This evening, I have the privilege of representing Matt Ligotti and Shepherd Estates. This is a request for an extension of time for a final major subdivision approval that was granted in December of 2016. By way of background, this subdivision is on a 4.6 acre site located off Ramtown, Greenville Road. The subdivision, which is known as Shepherd Estates, it was approved for 6 single-family residential lots and 1 stormwater management lot. The site is situated in the R3 zoning district. The subdivision did not require any variance relief. When the subdivision was approved, it complied with all of the R3 zoning regulations, and it continues to comply with those zoning regulations today. The applicant's request is for 2 one-year extensions for the final major subdivision approval that was originally granted on December 1, 2016. The first extension is for the period between December 2, 2018 to December 1 of 2019, and the second extension would be for December 2 of 2019 through December 1 of 2020. Pursuant to the municipal land use law 40:55D-52, the planning board may grant an extension of final approval retroactively, and the extension shall begin on what otherwise would have been the expiration date. The reason that we are requesting an extension is twofold. One, the applicant, Matthew Ligotti, has held on to the property due to market conditions. He now has identified a buyer who's willing to, and entered into a contract and that buyer intends to build the subdivision. He anticipates that the construction will be underway in the spring of 2020. The second reason was the difficulty in maintaining the outside approvals required for this subdivision. Stuart Challoner is here this evening. He is the engineer for this project. The outside agency approvals include approvals for water and sewer, NJDEP, county approval, freehold soil, and RFA. The only of those, the only outstanding, still pending approval are water and sewer and the NJDEP LOI. The others have been secured, so we are just waiting on those outside approvals. I do have Ms. Newman's review letter with me, and with your permission, Mr. Chair, I would ask Ms. Newman if she has any additional comments that she would like me to address.
You swear or affirm that the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I don't have anything additional. I think as presented, it's been very well summarized by Mr. Pape.
Mr. Chair, I want to get on the record, the zoning has not changed since the original approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So just for members of the board, even if you did not grant an extension of time, they would still have a valid approval. The zoning hasn't changed. They'd still be able to move forward with the project. So there's no impact whether you approve or deny in that regard. What you're looking at under Section 52 is whether there's been a good faith effort to move forward with the project. The applicant has provided information that they have obtained nearly all outside agency approvals. They are tracking down 3 more, but that's sort of the classic example of the extension of time, is that, you know, there are some additional approvals that are necessary.
And if I remember correctly, Ron, the MUL, municipal land use law, allows for 2 one-year extensions, and that's it, or can he come
Well,
back
for a final, I
after
think you
that?
get 3 one-year extensions.
It's 3 one-year
They're asking for
extensions.
2.
So they're asking for 2.
Yeah, and I agree that, you know, with the 2 they're asking for, it's not actually 2 years into the future. It backdates to when the expiration happened. So it backdates to last December for the first one.
Okay, and then we're going forward to this coming December.
Correct, so that'd be year extension number 1 would be December 2018 to 2019. Extension for the second year would be December 2019 through December 2020.
And you're representing that you'll be under construction in the spring of 2020, correct?
Correct. The applicant, as I mentioned, has entered into a contract with a buyer who intends to build the subdivision, really just pending those outside approvals.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to grant the 2 one-year extensions requested?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Schneider, do I have a second?
Second.
Chief Kundrick?
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
All right, the next one is case number SP 1060. It's MCK Enterprises LLC. This is a minor site plan application of MCK Enterprises LLC as applicant and owners seeking minor site plan approval to convert the existing bank building into a physical therapy office use. No site improvements other than revision to on-site signage and restriping the existing parking areas are proposed on premises known as Block 100, Lot 13.01, 3600 U.S. Highway 9 South. This case was scheduled to be heard on August 15th, 2019, when it was carried to September 5th, 2019, with no further notice.
Good evening,
Mr. Alfieri.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobi, Alfieri, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant. As the chairman has indicated, this is the old Santander Bank building, which is on the northbound lane of Route 9. Dr. Cornmel, who's a dentist in town, bought the building from the bank last November, there's a deed restriction where this property cannot be used as a bank for 5 years from the date he bought it. So under no circumstances can a bank reopen there for another a little over 4 years.
No, it's on the southbound lane, right?
No, southbound lane, yeah, I'm
Okay,
sorry,
all right.
Sorry. So Dr. Cormel found Trinity Rehab, who is currently a business in town, who wants to relocate and move their physical therapy business to this location. We have 2 witnesses, a representative from Trinity and also Mark Lieber, our engineer. And we're going to start with our Trinity witness. You're gonna get sworn in.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Tanya Gavrielides,
Spell it.
TonyA, last name Gavrielides.
Can you hear her okay, or do you need her at this microphone? Do you
Please.
mind standing there?
Sure.
Can you just spell that last name again, please?
Sure, it's Gavrielides.
Thank you.
And Tanya, what is your position with Trinity?
I am the Director of Operations.
And how many locations does your business currently have?
15 operating locations.
And there's one currently in Howell. Where is that located?
Yes, it's in Cherry Tree Plaza.
And your intention is to close that location and move to this location?
Correct.
What are your typical hours of operation?
Monday through Friday. Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are long days. We usually start at about 8 a.m., and our last patient is scheduled at 6:30. Tuesdays and Fridays are short days. We start at about 8 a.m. and go to about 12 to 1.
And in terms of the layout of the interior of the building, what changes, if any, will you have to make to customize this for your use? For example, what's the first floor going to be laid out as?
One big open gym area. We usually have one administration office and a reception area.
And then there's also a basement. Is the basement going to be used for anything other than storage and mechanicals?
Just storage and mechanicals.
So you understand if the board were to approve this application and restrict you from using the basement for any other purpose, you would be prohibited from doing so?
Correct, yes.
And you're okay
I'm
with
sorry,
that?
is storage and what?
Mechanicals.
Oh, okay.
In terms of parking, there's several parking spaces at the front of the building, and then the balance are in the back.
Correct.
How do you schedule your patients, and are you comfortable with the layout of the parking as it currently exists?
Yes, at one time, the most amount of patients we would have would be at the most 2 to 3. Not all of our patients are lower extremity patients, so those patients can park in the back. So 4 regular spaces and 2 handicap spaces are plenty for the front.
And is there any medical waste generated from your use?
No,
So you just have normal office-type
correct.
waste?
Correct.
And the dumpster that's located on site is adequate to service your
Correct,
needs?
yes.
And do you have deliveries or in the need for a loading space?
No, we do not.
So what types of deliveries, if any, take place as a normal business operation like this?
Normal business, office supplies, those kind of deliveries.
And they're just UPS-type trucks?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's all the operational testimony, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
What are you going to do with the drive-through?
Well, our intention was to keep it there. Our engineer will show you a suggestion to retain it, and if the board wants it removed, obviously we'll have to remove it. The doctor would prefer not to remove it because if this lease expires and they want to go back to a bank, it'll be there, but we defer to the board on that point.
And I think I heard you say 5 years was the time period that it cannot be a bank?
Yes, it would be November of 2023 would be the end of that restriction.
Does the board have any questions? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to open up this portion to the public. If you would like to ask questions, please step forward. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the public, and we'll move on to your engineer.
Thank you.
Can you please bring that easel a lot more forward towards the dais? Nick, you can see that?
Perfectly.
Tom, you're okay?
Yeah.
Is that what they have there?
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, it
Please
is.
state and spell your name for the record.
Certainly. Good evening. It's Mark with a C. Last name is Lieber, L-E-B-E-R.
And Mr. Lieber, would you place your professional credentials on the record, please?
Yes, I'm with the firm East Point Engineering. Our office is in Marlborough. I am licensed in New Jersey as a professional engineer and also as a professional planner. Bachelor of Science degree from Drexel University. I also have a graduate degree from Rutgers. I've been before this board numerous times, as well as the zoning board in Howell.
Is Mr. Lieber qualifying both as a civil engineer and a professional planner?
Yes.
All right, we'll accept, well, let me just ask you the standard. Mr. Lieber, your licenses are current with the New Jersey State Board,
That's correct.
and you have no actions pending against you or none prior actions against you?
None.
Okay, we'll accept him as an expert in civil engineering and as a professional planner.
Thank you. And Mark, the plan that you have on the easel was submitted to the board previously, is that correct?
Yes, this plan here is just sheet 3 of the plan set that was filed. The only difference is I added some coloring. And Laura had also put it up on the screen.
So since you added, is that the same document? So
It is.
Are we going to mark this A5?
Yes.
Third, second, fifth. Sorry.
Okay, I have A5 in today's date.
Thank you.
I also have another exhibit which I'm going to hand out. It's 3 pages of photographs. The first photograph is an aerial that just depicts this property and the surrounding area, and then the other 2 pages behind it are photos I took of the property yesterday morning.
And we'll mark the package as A6.
Okay, while that's being passed out, I'm going to get into some background information. So once again, this is block.
Mr. Lieber, just hold on. Let's get everybody to have all the material.
Thank you. This is Block 100. It's Lot 13.01. The street address is 3600 Route 9. The property is a corner lot on the corner of Redwood Road and Highway 9 on the southbound side. It's approximately .91 acres, and it's in your HC zone district, which is a highway commercial zone. There is a building on the property. It's approximately 2,500 square feet. It's formerly a bank with a drive-through. Also on the site, there's 22 parking stalls, 2 of which are ADA accessible. Access here is very good. You can make a right-in from the highway or right out onto the highway. There's also access on Redwood Road. There's a driveway with an island in the middle of the entrance, which allows for 2 separate ingress and egress lanes. The project is to convert the bank building into a physical therapy center. As far as site improvements, other than changing some signage on the property, namely the existing freestanding sign and the sign above the front entrance, the parking lot would be restriped, but that was the limit of the improvements we had proposed when the plan was submitted. Since that time, I've had the benefit to review the review letters from CME Associates, and there were a couple of questions in there about existing buffers and lighting, the condition of the parking lot, as well as the drive-through canopy. So I printed out some photos. I took another look at the property yesterday morning, and we'll start with the first page of A6. You'll see a little red pin in the center of the site that we're here to discuss tonight. You'll see Redwood Road on the left, and Route 9 crosses the page from left to right. Next door is a strip mall, followed by Taco Bell, and then you get to Aldrich Road. If you look at the right of the property, there's an office building and 2 other commercial uses, followed by McDonald's. Behind the property is a residential development, which is actually set much lower than this property, and then across the highway are mostly small office and commercial uses. If you look at the next page, again, I took this yesterday morning. I'm standing with my back to the side street. I'm just looking at the front of the building here. And you'll notice above the door, there's a sign that's covered up. We had proposed on this Plan Sheet 3 to replace that sign with the name of this business and their logo. And in the distance, you'll see a red and white sign. That's the existing freestanding sign along the highway. Again, we had proposed to change the artwork on that sign, shown on Sheet 3 with the entity name and logo. The sign location, height, dimensions, that would all remain as is today, so there'd be no change there. The photo on the bottom depicts my back to Route 9. I'm looking straight into the property from the entrance. There was a question about trash and how it's handled. I just wanted to show that there is an existing enclosure on the property for both regular refuse dumpsters and recycling. And if you were to turn to the left of that photo, that's where you'll see the entrance to the drive-through, which brings me to the top of the next page. Presently, there's a 2-lane drive-through with a bypass lane. It's separated from the parking in the back with a yellow stripe that's more or less hatched on the right of this photo. And you can see what that looks like on the other side of the drive-through canopy on the bottom, where there's a crosswalk to that parking area, and in the distance is the existing planted buffer on the property. Now, I had looked at the zoning here. There were 2 existing nonconformities as part of the application. One of them was the lot area. This zone requires 40,000 square feet, so this lot is actually 459 square feet deficient. Again, there's really no impact to that on what's proposed. And the other nonconformity was a front yard setback. And the zone requires 60 feet. We measured about 49.3 from the state highway, although the board planner had felt that if you include the bump out on the left of the building, that the front setback to Redwood Road might be slightly deficient as well. But again, those are existing nonconformities that are not impacted by the application. Are there any questions at this point?
You mentioned lighting, but you didn't comment on it. Is there parking lot lighting currently, and in what condition is that?
If you go back to the top photo on the second page, there's a series of what we call shoebox lights. There are many of them actually located throughout the property, and in each case, the location is shown on the survey. These are probably 250-watt fixtures, so I think that the site is pretty well illuminated, and that's common with banks, that they actually over-illuminate due to security reasons. So I don't see any reason to manipulate the lighting in any way. And that goes for the landscaping in the rear of the property and as well around the building. The frontage along the highway is planted with a hedge type of buffer to screen headlights from shining into the highway. And then around the building, the pad itself, that's all planted with a variety of shrubs and trees just to make it more aesthetic. So I don't think that there's any additional landscaping that would be needed for this change.
Is this a change of use? So that's why it's here. I was trying to figure out
I would
why.
not call it a change of use. It's still,
It's still a business occupancy going to a business occupancy. I just didn't understand why it's here for planning board. I'm trying to,
well, when you get approved for a particular type of tenancy, though, they're coming back for something different than what they were originally approved for.
gotcha.
So, do you want to talk about the lighting, or?
No, I'm fine with the lighting. The existing is what it is.
Well, so we don't know what the lighting, we don't know what the illumination levels are, correct?
I didn't perform any sort of a nighttime lighting study, if that's what you're asking, but just based upon the number of fixtures that are on this property, I'm not concerned with lighting being deficient.
Okay. Are we going to have the site lighting lower in intensity during the hours after the business closes at night?
We could put the site lighting on timers so it closes, because there were hours, after like 6:30, 7 o'clock, they're out of there, so we could certainly have them on timers, and then just have security lighting.
Okay, so
What about sidewalk?
we'll get to that. Ron, we'll make that a condition, stipulation.
Yes.
Just some other waivers, design waivers. Yeah. There, just one last question for Mark, and then we could address the professional reports and the board's comments. There was, I believe, I don't know if Peter outlines it, but there's several design waivers that are required. Yet in Peter's report, page 4, there's 5 design waivers that we should discuss. And one of them's the sidewalk that we'll get to.
Okay, so I'm on page 4 of the August 9th letter from the board planner. And the first item is pertaining to angled parking and the dimensions for the drive aisle. Again, this is an existing condition. However, when we talk about the drive-through canopy, I wanted to show you a plan that I brought with me to increase the width of the aisle in the rear of the site. So we could put that off for a little later in the discussion. I would be happy to discuss that. For letter B, the dimension requirement to the pylon sign is 20 feet from the right-of-way. Now, when I submitted the plan, I indicated that it was about 20 and a half feet from the right-of-way line, but I was dimensioning from the right-of-way line to the center of the pylon, the actual support. If you, in fact, measure it to the edge of the sign, where you could project that edge down to the ground, it's about 17 and a half feet. And again, it's an existing condition that we're not proposing to modify. The next item was sidewalk. There's presently no sidewalk along this property on either side. However, I can tell you that I have the photo of the aerial. And the opposite side of Redwood Road does have a sidewalk, and that's, Redwood Road is the sidewalk that leads into the residential area. The next nearest sidewalk on the highway is at McDonald's, and you can see that in this aerial photo if you look at the extreme right side. So I wanted to discuss with the board if they had an opinion on the sidewalk issue and, what that opinion was.
And the applicant requests, there's a limited finances here. If we didn't have a bank restriction, we could rent it to a bank and we wouldn't have to come to the board. Since we're bringing it to you because of this change of use, any expense that's added to this process becomes problematic. So since there's a sidewalk already on the side street on the other side, and since there's really nothing on 9 to connect it to, we'd ask that the sidewalk be waived, and we're certainly open to any questions you have.
You do realize, Mr. Alfieri, that if we waive the sidewalk, you're going to be paying into the
fee,
sidewalk
yes.
fund?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, also, I recognize the financial issues that the applicant may have, but when you're making your decisions, they're based upon planning principles, not the economics of the situation.
Thank you.
And there were 2 other waivers, Mark, you may as well hit those.
Let me just poll the
Okay.
board for a second. Opinion, sidewalk, no sidewalk?
Sidewalk.
It's always one I struggle with, where it's a sidewalk to nowhere.
I think the sidewalk should go in. McDonald's put it in when they renovated McDonald's. It's just one more piece to try to finish connecting the sidewalks on Route 9.
Nick?
I'm going to say no.
I don't see the necessity.
I think it should have a sidewalk, but I will go along with what the board says.
All right, so the consensus is of the board, no sidewalk.
And we'll pay the fee to the town. Thank you. All right, Mark, there were 2 other waivers, please, that you need to hit.
Sure. On letter D, it discusses parking screening visible to the public. Now, in the front of the property, there are some shrubs at the head of those parking stalls facing 9. They're just a hair under 3 feet, but they have been maintained. I don't see a reason to change the species. They're an evergreen type of shrub. Again, it's existing, it's tasteful, and it's an existing condition.
Sherry, would you like to weigh in on this, please?
Yeah, I would say I agree with Mark. They're juniper shrubs, they're established, they're a mature hedgerow there. I wouldn't recommend removing it, it looks nice too, it's in good shape.
And, you satisfied with it, or
Yeah,
would you like to see it boned up a little bit?
I don't really think you could do anything to it without disturbing the shrubs that are there. You don't really have any other room. So, I would really leave them alone and let them be, because they're in good shape.
Okay. Does the board have any problems with leaving the existing landscaping?
I agree with Jared. They're in good shape.
Okay, so there's your resolution, that we're going to leave the existing landscaping. That's it.
Thank you. There was one more waiver, which was E, and that's regarding the setback to parking lot. There is a 50-foot setback requirement to a residential use, and again, behind the property are residences. You know, if you measure from the lot line back, it's like around 40 to 43 feet, which is non-conforming. Again, we're not proposing to make any changes here. It's an existing condition. I actually ran the traffic numbers myself in case it came up tonight, and the type of trips that are generated for this use are remarkably less than for a bank with a drive-through. So I don't think there's really a detriment with that existing nonconformity.
Okay. Everybody agree with that? All right, so that we would be amenable to granting that waiver.
And that's the direct testimony that we have from all of our witnesses. We're prepared to discuss the canopy drive-through and any comments that the board professionals may have.
Let's get right to the meat of the canopy.
All right. So we have an alternative for you to consider, and again, we defer to you. Whatever you'd prefer, we will do. And that's another handout.
All right, so we'll mark this as A7.
Yes.
And
While they're handing that out, I got a question for Ms. Newman.
what are we going to describe this as?
It's a striping plan for the canopy area, and there's a photo attached of a planter.
Ms. Newman, is there anything in our ordinance for any type of crash or car barrier because the cars face Route 9? I could have sworn in recent applications, we put something that keep cars from running into Route 9 recently.
We have asked of it on other applications, but our ordinance doesn't speak to separating the parking from the highway. It's more along parking directly against the building, and if we have outdoor seating areas.
Got it. Is that something that we should ask the professional if he feels that there's enough adequate space between?
Well, what I
the
would
edge
tell
of
you,
Route 9?
what I'd like to see is the change in grade. What's unique about this application that I think makes it different is their parking is directly up against the Route 9 property line. So usually we have some level of a setback, but if you look at the plans, they're right on the line. So even if we were to ask for a barrier, it wouldn't be on their property, it would be on the DOT property. So I don't know that that would be permissible, but it is a unique circumstance where typically we don't have parking right on the property line.
Well, let me ask the board if anybody else thinks that that's a potential safety issue.
So, I mean, you go a couple of lots over, and you have the McDonald's, which has the angle parking
And doesn't
facing
have any,
Route 9.
and doesn't have any barrier.
Right, right. So, I mean,
Overhead.
let's be a little consistent here.
Sounds fine.
All right, so, Mr.
So
Levy.
Mark, we're referring to A7, which has now been handed out to the board. Can you describe for the board what the applicant's proposing as it relates to the canopy?
Yes. Presently, there's angled parking in the back of the property, and the distance from the end of those stalls to where the yellow striping is separating from the drive-through bypass lane is like less than 20 feet. I think it's maybe 18. Now, I've driven around the site myself, and I thought the best option here would be to increase that aisle. So this plan shows that aisle now 23 feet wide. And the way I was able to accommodate that is, if you look at this plan, which is sheet 3, you'll see the yellow hatch striping. We would remove all of that, starting from where, yes, precisely what's on the screen. All of that would come out, as well as all the drive-through striping and those arrows. And what we would do is we would stripe, as shown on this A7 exhibit, everything you see in red, including the 2 arrows, would be striped in yellow. So because the property is a one-way circulation, you would pull in off of Route 9, you could drive straight to the back, you have a nice wide 23-foot aisle, which exceeds the standard for angled parking. In fact, it almost meets the standard for perpendicular parking. And then I added in there little rectangles, which if you flip to the second page, this was just a suggestion, something aesthetic, in the form of like a planter, just to give a visual, not to park on that yellow striping, to separate that area, so that people don't go and park under the canopy because they think it's a spot to park in.
But is it also prohibiting a fire vehicle from getting back there?
Not the way I have them spaced. I have them spaced about 15 feet apart, which is more than enough spacing for a fire truck to access that area.
Chief, what don't you like about it? So, well, I think there's two aspects of this. Is number one, do we want to take off the physical canopy itself, remove the structure? I probably should ask, well, maybe you or definitely you, is there a conventional drive-through window in the building right now underneath the canopy?
Yes, there was a window.
And will that be
and
removed?
An ATM, which was removed.
All right, the ATM is on the outside. All right.
And it's been removed.
Right, but that window, is that window going to be left there, or is that window going to be removed?
We're not.
We were not.
All right.
That's the last
So,
we
um,
spoke about.
The applicant indicates that their architect had suggested that they close off that window.
Okay. So,
Could I offer, maybe if we go too far down the road, what if they just put those things up that the truck drives over?
well, I was actually going, I mean, right now, the ordinance requires 70% impervious coverage, and the existing condition is 68 and change percent, all right? I was going to say, couldn't we do something, understanding your concern, Chief, all right, about replacing at least a portion of that hatched area with grass, impervious area, low plantings, something to break up this wide expanse of asphalt. And then second, addressing what the chief is concerned about, maybe widening that area a little bit. Although, Chief, I'm a little concerned if we make it too wide, it's going to encourage wrong-way moves.
Right, I understand. But I also think about getting the ambulance. How often have you had an ambulance call to physical review? At any point in time, have you?
In maybe 14 years, 2 to 3 times.
All right, well, if an ambulance can't get in a 23-foot wide aisle, they don't deserve to be driving.
Well, you also need a working area.
Yeah.
You want a safe working area for the EMS crew, also for fire.
Right.
Right, so I get there's enough space if they would happen to do this.
But
So-
there's no rear entrance.
No,
Is there a rear entrance where the drive-through is?
no.
There's a rear exit door for emergency egress.
Okay, so
But-
then the ambulance would be going to the front door,
Yeah.
really?
So let's ask the first question. Do we want to leave the canopy there? My personal opinion is that that canopy should come off, or to be modified at least, so it doesn't look like a drive-through.
Agreed.
Brian?
Yeah, I think it would make the project better.
Dave?
So it's old fashioned, because if you, 4 years from now, you want to be a bank again.
Understood, but let's talk about the application and forget about the financial consideration,
And
as Ron
and
suggested.
you're trying to eliminate a nonconformity,
Right.
at
I
least.
mean, is there a way just to kind of, hear me out, but for lack of a better, like plywood off the side, but something a little nicer, just to kind of block off both sides of it? Just so it's, people can't drive through it.
Like just putting those planters right inside that.
Yeah, and just something.
I have, it's a personal fixation that I have, so bear with me, all right? It just looks, I'm sorry, it looks stupid, all right?
You can't see it unless you go around back.
Well, yeah, and with the circulation, everybody's going to go around back.
Hopefully you're not there, if you're on physical rehab, so don't worry.
I'm sure she'll throw me out. My personal opinion is that we should talk about doing something at least to remove the physical canopy. if you want.
I think that the canopy is not going to bother anybody. Just a big, and I agree with Mr. Everett, we're trying to be in this township business friendly. I don't think the expense is worth it.
Okay. Chief?
I'm fine with the canopy. I'd like to see those planters though placed almost directly under it. That would prevent somebody from actually flowing through it.
I mean, if you look at the photo on the last page, you see where the...
A6?
Of
Oh,
A7.
sorry, A6.
A-
Not the striping handout, the one with the photo of the property. We could move the planters almost to exactly where the shadow is cast on the ground from the canopy. And we could still stripe all that area as no parking. And it'd still give the widening of that rear aisle. I mean, if that is acceptable. I mean, just to be frank, the canopy is not easy to remove. It's tied into the roof structure of the building. And even if you do remove it and then you remove all the supporting columns, you're still left with the islands that are there with the infrastructure from the, I guess, the transaction with the teller. So it's kind of involved.
Well, then let's circle back to that second point, all right, is can we do something to remove some of the pavement, all right? I'll grant you we'll leave the islands that support the canopy and, put the planters so that they don't drive through, as the chief is suggesting. But can we do something to remove some of the asphalt and replace it with plantings? Or grass area, or something?
Sure, we could,
Grass area.
Mark can make he has a suggestion to consider. Go ahead.
Again, back at the top photo, I'm just doing this on the fly right now, but what if we were to bring a curb perpendicular to that sidewalk across the drive-through lane to tie into the last aisle and then put a grass area in there?
Yeah,
Something like that.
something like that.
And then
yes.
that could be easily removed if it had to ever be removed.
To put the plantings on the other side so people don't use it
Right,
as a parking spot.
it'll have more visual interest. You'll see, grass with some shrubs or whatever.
So you're going to have to explain that so that
I
Ron,
didn't understand that at all.
I know.
Yeah.
And you may want to be able to, you don't have a laser, do you, to point to that? So Laura, what he's
Yes.
suggesting is the sidewalk that's to the north of the property?
This way,
Yeah, the other side.
in the back corner. Do you want me to go up there?
I'm just not seeing the sidewalk. in the-
Point,
But the sidewalk along the
It's
face
along the back of
building.
the building in the top photo. It's like a service walk.
Is it not on this plan?
It's,
He's talking about this, right this.
Yeah, she's trying to find it.
Right,
It's that
right,
sidewalk, yes.
This right here.
Yeah.
right. So now,
in other words,
he's suggesting that we take from that sidewalk and run it all the way back along to the rear of the hatched area, and that right section would all be landscape, where you take out the pavement and the right side, that section right there.
right, the curb line on that screen would go up and down, and then curve to the left and head toward the canopy. And because on this piece of property, the grade increases as you drive to the drive-through, the curb would just fade into the grade, and then it would be grass inside. Something like that.
Are you going to carry curb to the edge of the canopy?
To the edge of the last island, where that white stripe is in this photo. Actually, if you look at the photo where the white stripe is, that's where the curb would be. And it would just connect back to the building.
It would be the outside stripe between the bypass lane and the outside drive-through lane.
Right, and it would pretty much cross this photo and go perpendicular to that walkway.
Right.
And then beyond that, you'd have the grass and whatnot.
So, let me, Laura, so what I think he's saying is, he would pick up the curb here, come around, follow that, and then die into that that island.
Exactly.
And then this all would be grass area, and then we would put planters in front of the actual physical drive-through aisles, and put the planters on both sides so people don't come around and try to back in.
Got it.
Sit under the canopy all day, people can sit on what they call it, get rained on, or sunshine on it.
Understood.
How much traffic flow do they get in? It's
Just
not-
in one way around.
It's trying to eliminate a nonconformity of not having enough impervious.
No, they haven't, they meet the requirement. I'm just using this as an opportunity to get a little more green area.
Okay.
That's all.
But then it disappears if they decide to go back to a bank?
Yes.
Well, it's taking out some grass and putting back asphalt.
Well, they'll have to deal with
It's
that.
not a
when-
big cost.
They'll have to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a tremendous issue.
Right.
So if I own the property and it's snowing out and I want to back my car under the overhang to keep it from snow, that's my property, why shouldn't we be?
talking your microphone, so can't hear a word.
Why shouldn't we be allowed to, the person be allowed to do that though?
I told you, I want to try to eliminate that use of underneath the canopy, right? That's all. I mean, if you're terribly concerned about that, it's just
It's not like
removing.
I'm terribly concerned, I just look at myself as if I was the owner and I want to park my car to keep it out of the sun, to keep it out of the snow, and have an area to park my car. That's just the way I look at it.
I'm not adverse. If you want to allow that, I really don't have an issue with that.
Let's pull a board.
Nick? No parking or parking under the canopy?
Make it employee parking only.
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Employee parking only.
Right?
Then you solve the
I'm-
problem.
If I could, though, then I'm concerned from a circulation standpoint. I mean, I understand, I don't know when the employees are going to be coming and going. I know we heard some level of operation, but this is a one-way aisle.
Correct.
And if we're going to put it for employee parking, then I think we need a little bit of a better plan than this as well. I mean, unless you're saying you can put 2 spots underneath the canopy, I'm just not sure how we're configuring it, and I don't want to create confusion when the members of the public go here. And, I mean, it's physical therapy. People go to physical therapy from all over. It may not just be someone from Howell. And I just don't want to create an instance where people now think it's easier for me to park behind the building to get to the front of the building. I mean, there's no parking directly against this building. It's all your crossing access aisles. So if we start to allow employee parking back there, I just want to make sure we're properly patrolling it, for lack of a better term, so that members of the public don't start parking back there because it's the closest way to get into the building. They just have to walk around the service
Well,
walkway.
I can tell you this, there's no police officer that I'm gonna have go around the back of the building to make sure they're parking properly. That ain't happening.
One of the things I think we're missing is the young lady
No,
said.
I didn't mean it like in that sense, but
I just wanted to get that out there. One of the things the
That'll be the
young
next
lady
rumor
said
going
at
around
the
the police
beginning
department.
was, there's only going to be a certain amount of patients there at one time. It's not there like there's going to be 50, 60 people here. It's a physical therapy. They come by appointment.
We don't
What's
have,
the average stay of a patient when they come in? I mean, I know people.
Half
want
hour,
different things.
1
40
hour.
minutes, you know, I mean, it
Okay, so-
depends on.
Yeah, so I mean, we're not gonna have a heavy traffic flow coming in and out of there.
And you stated before there was 2 to 3 patients at one time?
Yeah.
And how many employees would be with the 2 to 3 patients? At one time, how many people are going to be there?
At the most, it would be 4, so 3 to 4 employees at one time.
3 to 4
And they would be
employees.
required to park in the back. All of our clinics, the employees are required to park in the back. So currently, we have 1 therapist, 1 receptionist, and then 1 to 2 helpers.
So it's
physical
like
therapy
7
techs.
people at one time?
Well,
Is fair?
Yeah, I
Not
would say
necessarily.
so.
I mean, isn't there an overlap? There are people waiting for their appointments while others are finishing up.
I mean, yes, there could be, yeah. But
There
I
could
mean, it's
be.
not a big, it's not.
I'm
a
not
big
going to testify,
overlap,
but I've been
yeah.
to physical therapy.
So,
Yeah.
You're going to have some overlap.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem putting the planters there. We don't need the parking, so we don't want to spend a lot of time on that point, except.
So let's go back to the original
Further.
genesis of the planters. We don't need it, I apologize. you do comply with impervious coverage. You have less than, so we already have enough green space on the property. The purpose of the planters was to try to give more depth behind the angled parking because we're presently not compliant with enough space to back out of those angled parking spots? Was that the genesis of
It was
this?
twofold. I wanted to widen that aisle, but I also wanted to give a visual barrier in addition to the striping that says, don't, that's not an area to go with a car.
Okay.
You know, just to seclude it from the circulation.
And the chief is concerned about the plantings because you feel that it's going to inhibit fire safety.
Yeah, I don't like the way that's
Coming-
proposed with all the planters around like that. No, absolutely
You
not.
would rather, so even if we did a curb and made that green grass, then we'd still not have the fire truck closer to the rear of the
Correct.
building. Is that a fair
Correct.
statement?
Correct.
So it sounds like we're creating more problems than we need. Put some planters around just the perimeter of the drive-through to keep it from being some extra whatever. And move on would be my opinion.
And stripe that area. So
Stripe
people-
it, call it a day.
I agree.
Sounds good.
Sorry, we read her out.
I know.
Is that an easier solution?
Okay. Any other questions?
No,
I'm just curious as to,
I think it's,
I mean, it was a bank parking. Now, people with handicaps needed be able to walk from that easily, parking in the rear.
there's no entrance from the rear. Paul? Paul, there's no entrance from the rear.
I think that's what he's saying.
But the handicapper out front.
Yeah.
The handicap
To the front.
spaces are out front, by the front door.
You got that? So all the handicap spaces are not in the back, they're all in the front
Oh,
for
okay.
close access to the door. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, I'll open it up to the public. At this point, if anyone would like to come up and ask questions of the engineer, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion.
That concludes our presentation. I just don't know if we hit everything Laura and Peter needed hit.
So the only thing I would ask, Mark, we had a couple minor technical revisions. In item 6, do you agree to comply with those?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Peter, we swear you in first. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Yeah, and actually, I was just going to mention, they actually addressed the remaining questions I had through the exchange with the board, so I have nothing further.
We'll see how they, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, if anyone would like to come up and comment on this application, testify on this application, please step forward and be sworn. Seeing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting. Mr. Alfieri, would you like to make any closing statement?
No, we just, thank you for your consideration. We request that the board approve the application. We agreed that the lighting would be on timers. We would pay assuming the board votes favorably, we would pay the sidewalk fund monies in lieu of installation of the sidewalk. And I think the consensus was for us to stripe the area where the canopy is and then to put planters near the canopy entrances so that no one would drive through those.
And the basement would be limited to storage and mechanicals?
That's correct. And then the technical comments we would address. And we would request, based on those conditions, that the board approve the application.
Oh, and also, the site lighting would be on timers with security lighting after hours?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
Did they say about the sidewalk fund?
Yes, Mr. Alfieri said the applicant is agreed to pay his fair share into the sidewalk fund.
I'll make a motion to approve the application, with all of the stipulations stated.
Mr. Boyle is the second.
Mr. Boyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dorado?
Yes.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Pudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Everett?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you.
thank you.
You're doing JP Morgan next? Mr. Chair?
Yes, so what I'm going to do is, we need to hear the J.P. Morgan application because that has, well, we have an extension of time on that, Eileen, to December 24th.
You want to take
All
5
right,
minutes?
I kept thinking it was due.
All right. Where's the,
It's up to you.
where's the applicant's attorney for J.P. Morgan?
Mark, are you going to give me that exhibit? Okay, that's fine.
Counselor, how long do you figure this application will take?
We anticipate it will take approximately 40 minutes to an hour, depending upon the questioning by the board. We do intend to present 6 witnesses. Some of them would be very brief and very particular in terms of their testimony and different aspects of the site. We brought someone to speak to environmental. We brought someone to speak to the landscape architecture. Each one is confined in nature. They intend to be brief but comprehensive to address all of the board's questions.
Laura, I can see that.
All right, I mean, because we have the Gill Petroleum, which would, I imagine, take up the majority of the site. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the J.P. Morgan application in front of the Gill Petroleum, so you'll be our next application. So now we are going to hear case number SP 10.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a 10-minute break before we get into this?
Oh, sure. All right. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
Planning board will now reconvene.
Have everyone's attention, please. Going back on. Eileen, let's just call the roll to make sure we don't lose anyone.
Mr. Boyle?
Here.
Mr. Dorado? Here. Mr. Husser?
Here.
Chief Kudrick? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Yep.
Mr. Tannenhouse?
Here.
Mr. Everett? And Chairman Nash.
Present.
Everyone's accounted for, you still have a quorum.
Okay, Counselor.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jennifer Porter. I'm an attorney with Chiesa, Shahinian, and Gian Tomasi, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, in connection with its application for preliminary and final major site plan approval, along with ancillary bulk variances and other design-related relief. Tonight, we are proposing to develop a bank, which is approximately 3,028 square feet and consists of 2 drive-through lanes. The proposed bank will be located at 4001.
I'm sorry, Counselor. I had a little brain lapse here. Can I just announce the case?
Absolutely.
So we can go on record?
Sure.
I'm sorry about that. It's been a long day. We're now hearing case number SP 1062, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. It's for a preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary bulk variances. It's an application of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A. as applicant and PMG New Jersey LLC as owner, seeking preliminary and final major site plan with ancillary bulk variances to remove all existing site improvements and construct a 1-story bank with drive-through, ATM service, and parking for 23 vehicles, lighting and landscaping improvements, and signage on premises known as Block 54.01, Lot 8, 4001 U.S. Highway 9 North at Aldridge Road. Okay, I'm sorry.
Terrific. You made my job much easier. So in terms of the relief that we're seeking tonight, as you indicated, we're seeking ancillary bulk variance relief and design waivers. Specifically, we're seeking in connection with our application to maintain the existing lot area of 30,854 square feet as a pre-existing nonconformity of the site. In connection with bulk variance relief, we're seeking a waiver to allow maximum impervious lot coverage of 77.4%, where 70% is required, even though we have a significant decrease in terms of the existing lot coverage at the site. In addition, we're seeking design waivers with respect to light intensity at ground level, the width of driveways, certain signage requirements, and the distance with respect to the center line of the access drive. In terms of the procedural history as it relates to this site, we had several concept meetings with the board's consultants and staff and took their comments and
other criteria back, and we believe we've come up with a development project that works well for the site, within the confines and constraints of the site. By way of other background, the site is an existing operating Gulf gas station, so we will have testimony this evening relating to the environmental condition of the property. I just wanted to note up front, Chase is leasing the property from the property owner, PMG, and that in connection with the environmental aspects of the site, the landlord is entirely responsible for any and all remediation that will be required in connection potentially with the pulling of the tanks and other related aspects of the site. We will provide, as I indicated, testimony which explains essentially what may be required, but I wanted you to just be aware of the fact that that will all be handled by our landlord. And so with respect to Chase and our interest in it, obviously, we will be pursuant to our lease requiring that that be done by the landlord, and obviously it's required in connection with state law. In terms of the witnesses this evening, we will start with our site engineer. We will then present brief testimony by our architect just to walk you through the elevations and briefly the floor plan as it relates to how we get the numbers concerning the amount of parking that's being provided on site. We'll have, again, a brief presentation by our landscape architect who will walk you through screening and buffering and then the variety of the planting schedule that's proposed. That will be followed up by again, brief testimony by environmental, simply on the existing condition of the property, the testing that was done, and anything that will be required. And then we'll also have traffic engineer here to talk about the traffic study that was performed and traffic as it relates to Route 9, Aldridge Road, and the intersection where the site is located. And we will end with planning testimony to wrap up the relief that's being required. Tonight, we handed in packets to the board. There should be 2 packets for each board member. The first packet contains a list of, it's basically the entire site plan set that was submitted to the board. It's the most recent drawings. The second set of drawings, which also contains some of the plans that you have previously seen, is a list of the exhibits in the order that we intend to present them at the meeting tonight. Based upon my conversations with the board attorney, what we've agreed to do is to mark the entire set as A12, and that would consist of the following plans: the survey, the site plan rendering, the existing condition plan, perspective plan 1, which is a view from Aldrich Road, Perspective Plan 2, which is a view from Route 9 North, Perspective Plan 3, which is a view from Route 9 South, the lighting plan, the traffic circulation plan, the sign detail sheet, 2 sheets of the exterior elevations, the floor plan, and the planting plan. Again, many of these items, with the exception of the rendering of the site plan and the perspective plans, are already part of the plan sets in front of the board.
So this second package, Ron, the second package, this is A12?
That's correct.
And
The first package, we don't need to mark because it's just a reduced version of what's already been pre-marked.
okay. What was it pre-marked as?
A3.
Great. If the board has no questions for me, I'd like to begin our testimony with the testimony of our project site engineer from Core States.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Martin Swaggard. That's spelled S-W-A-G-G-A-R-D.
Okay. Okay, if you can just qualify, Mr. Swaggart.
Sure. I'm a project manager with the firm of Core States Group, located at 201 South Maple Avenue in Ambler, Pennsylvania. I'm a 1995 graduate of the University of Florida with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I have approximately 24 years experience in the field of civil engineering and site development consulting. I am licensed in the state of New Jersey. My license is current, and I've been accepted as an expert witness by boards throughout the state.
And you don't have any actions pending by the board against you?
No, I don't.
And you haven't had any actions?
No, sir.
All right, we'll accept him as an expert in civil engineering.
Thank you. Mr. Steiger, could you please begin by going through? Yeah.
So, there's that bar, that's a microphone, and it's better if your engineer uses the handheld.
Oh, it might not be on.
Bear with us while we resolve our technical difficulties here.
Thank you. Can you hear? Okay.
Yes.
I'll start with the existing site. A little bit of discussion about the existing site. I'm looking at the site survey here, which we have marked as A1. As we discussed, the site's located at 4001 US Route 9. It's block 54.01, Lot 8. It's at the southeast corner of the intersection of Route 9 and Aldrich Road, just off the northbound lane of Route 9. It's currently zoned HC Highway Commercial. It's a by right use. As we discussed, the existing lot is 30,854 square feet, although the code requires 4,000 square foot minimum. It is an existing nonconformity that we are asking for relief from. And as Ms. Porter mentioned, it's currently occupied by an operating service station with, I believe, 8 dispensers, a service building, and the associated parking and underground storage tanks and all those kinds of things that are typically at a gas station site. Right now, the site has 2 access drives off of Route 9. There's one close to the intersection, one a little bit further away, and it's got 2 access drives off of Aldrich Road as well. Not a very, it's your typical gas station. It's got driveways that are close to the intersection, which isn't a preferred design aspect for site design, but fairly typical of a gas station. Like I said, basically uncontrolled access to the site. You can enter or exit through all 4 of the driveways on the site. The proposed site, I'll move on to.
It's all part of A12.
The colorized rendering of the proposed site. Like I mentioned, we're maintaining the lot size. It is non-compliant, but we are maintaining that. Lot frontage, we have 157.6 feet on Route 9 and 152.4 feet on Aldrich Road. Our setbacks, we are 62 feet off Route 9, or 62.9 feet off Route 9 and 61.1 feet off Aldrich Road. Our side yard setbacks are 43.9 feet for the building, and we are at 28.4 feet for the south side of the building, which is the extent of the canopy, the drive-through ATM canopy. One of the other aspects that we are asking for relief from is regarding impervious coverage. The existing site's approximately 90% impervious coverage. It's very sparsely landscaped. We are proposing coverage of 77.94% with landscaping. The code requires a 70% coverage. We had some difficulty meeting this requirement just because of drive aisles and all the other parking and all the other features that are required in trying to accommodate emergency vehicle circulation. So, but we are improving the current situation by 12.3%. Additional landscaping. In addition, we are proposing street trees and various other shrubs throughout the site, to which now there's virtually nothing. There's some shrubs along each of the roads, but no street trees. Like I said, very sparsely landscaped. And lot depth is 170 feet. Our improvements include a 3,028 square foot Chase Bank with a drive-up ATM on the south side of the building, as well as the associated bypass lane around that. Site access is proposed. We're reducing it from 4 existing driveways to 2 driveways. We're proposing a right-in, right-out only driveway off of Route 9 North, as well as a driveway off Aldrich Road. It's a right or left in and a right out only. We are not permitting left turns onto Aldrich Road from this driveway. Most of the site is two-way circulation with the exception of the drive-up ATM lane. That is just one-way circulation through the drive-up ATM and its bypass lane. But the other lanes, you could come in off Route 9 and park and come back out either direction or circulate around the site to the back in two directions. One of the things I did mention, which is also associated with one of the design waivers, the township requires 30-foot drive aisles. We are proposing 25-foot drive aisles. We did present this to the Township's Fire Bureau at their meeting back in the spring, and they had no objection to that. And we did model a fire truck through the site and found that they can more than adequately access the site. But also with having 25-foot drive aisles, that allows us to add a lot more landscaping to the site to try to better that condition of that 90% existing coverage and get us down to 77%. We are also proposing new site lighting. The site's lit now, but we are proposing new site lighting at the site. We do have to comply with New Jersey State ATM lighting standards, which require basically the New Jersey State requirements require 10-foot candles at the face of the ATM, 2-foot candles within 50 foot of the ATM or entrance to an ATM vestibule in any direction, and 2-foot candles. A 2-foot candle average in the parking area within 60 foot of an ATM or ATM vestibule. So we do have those standards that we are that we are complying with. That does exceed the township's requirements. The township requires, they have a 0.3 foot candle minimum and a 0.5 foot candle average, but like I said, we had difficulty meeting that average because of the state ATM requirements, but we did try to minimize it, and per the lighting plan, we don't have significant spillage off the property. There was a comment, I believe, from the township planner that says we actually go below the minimum. We have some instances at the property line where we're down to 0.1 foot candles, but we are doing that to prevent spillage of light off the site. Although it is all surrounded by commercial use, the Aldrich Shopping Center is all around the back and side of this, and there's commercial uses on the opposite side of the street. But we are trying to minimize any spillage of lights.
Mr. Swaggart?
Yes.
Just on that, I hear minimize the spillage, no substantial spillage. What is the spillage?
I'm going to pull out refer to the lighting plan that we've prepared. Just over the property line in the parking areas, we're at, we range between, like I said, 0.1 foot candles up to approximately 0.6 foot candles. But like I said, that's just off outside into the parking lot of the shopping center behind us, which is lit as well. So very little spillage. We do have house side shields proposed on all pole mounted lights except for one pole mounted light that's interior to the site, but all the pole mounted lights that are along the property line have house side shields to minimize that light spillage.
And you use some down throw fixtures?
Yes, we are.
LEDs?
Yes, all LED down facing
White
fixtures.
LED?
Excuse me?
White LED?
Yes.
No, they're,
Am I mistaken by that?
yeah, I believe, Mr. Chairman, I'm seeing on the plan a 3,000 Kelvin.
Yes, you are correct. We are proposing a 3,000 Kelvin light.
And I'll leave it up to the chief, but it's a pretty busy intersection. You may want to, like to not spill light, but you may want to remove the house side shields for the lights that are around Route 9 and give more light to Route 9. I know it sounds counterintuitive.
All I would say is, it's a DOT roadway, all right? And they're very particular about their lighting standards at signalized intersections. What I would ask is,
So we may,
have you made application to the DOT?
We have
for your
made
access?
application to DOT, yes.
Have they approved your access?
Not as now yet. No, we're still in process.
We're going to ask that he, in his discussions of his access permit, all right, represent that the board would not be adverse to let more light spillage onto their facility and let them determine the answer to that question.
Okay.
Just one issue, though, on the light spillage, Mr. Chairman. The board's reports do call out the need for relief for the average intensity, but I think there's also a section our professionals looking up now that they would also need relief from because there's going to be some spillage, however minimal it is. And that section was not cited in any of the reports. So we're looking at that now.
Okay, whenever you find it, we'll just circle back to that.
Okay. One of the other things I failed to mention earlier, because I heard this discussed on the previous application, there are existing sidewalks surrounding the site. We're replacing them, a lot of them, because we are redoing the driveways, but they will remain. We are replacing those sidewalks.
Yeah,
as well as
that sidewalk is very important because there's a bus shelter just to the south of this site on northbound 9. And when the buses don't go into the Aldridge Park and Ride, the people utilize that sidewalk to park in Aldridge and walk to that bus shelter.
Yeah, absolutely. We are also proposing access to our site from that public sidewalk for residents that may walk to the site. But
And you should look at the handicap treatment on the entrance ramp, the entrance and exit on Route 9. You have ramps on either side, but you don't have ramps on that island. And you need to have a consistent pedestrian route.
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, are you referring to the other side of, the opposite side of Route 9? You said on the island?
No, I'm talking about your ingress and egress onto Route 9. You have
Okay.
handicaps on the outside, but you don't have any way of having handicap access across that island separating the inbound and the outbound.
That is just a striped island.
That's a striped island.
Yes.
Why is that striped as opposed to being
I believe it's
a raised island?
The rendering,
If it's not, then we will certainly make sure that it is.
yeah, in rendering R-3, it shows it being a concrete raised island.
Okay, yeah, well, if it's not detailed correctly, we'll make sure that there's a cutout for, yeah, it's got to be ADA compliant, so we'll make sure that it's ADA compliant, you can pass through it. I don't think you can actually accommodate a ramp on it, it'll just have a gap.
That's fine. Just make sure you accommodate it, like you said.
Absolutely. Like I said, regarding the relief we're seeking, we are seeking relief from the township's impervious coverage requirement from section 188-76 of the code. Like I said, there's 90% existing. We are improving that to 77.4% with the addition of the landscaping that we're providing. There was also mention of loading space requirement here at this site per 188-106H, that we need to provide one loading space. I think I was a little bit, our use was not listed under the list of uses requiring a loading space. We are considered a financial institution was not listed there unless we would be considered something else. So there's also something mentioned in the code that this says uses not permitted will provide sufficient loading spaces. We don't really have any loading operations here. Obviously, it is a bank, and there are armored cars that come periodically. They're on an as-needed basis, probably no more than twice a week. It's not a continuous operation, and they actually just can park in a parking space, and they stay for a half hour or so just to do what they need to do. But that's about it. We don't have, like I said, we don't have delivery trucks or anything like that. Regarding operations of the site, we do, as you can see, we are not proposing a trash enclosure. Waste from customers and employees will be removed nightly by the cleaning staff. Chase does have, as a bank, they do handle some sensitive documents that are shredded, and they are removed on an as-needed basis by a third party and brought off-site and recycled somewhere else. But that's, like I said, on an as-needed basis with that.
Well, I mean, what type of vehicle removes them. I mean, most of the companies use that shredded or similar type of thing that has the shredding machine and that the locked garbage cans, and they come and they just dump it and then they shred it right there. That's usually a single unit truck.
I'm gonna have to defer back to our client on what they're using for that. Is that step van?
A step van. Okay.
Correct. So he said, like, they shred it off. It's actually, I was incorrect, they shred it off-site. They're hauled off-site and shredded off-site, so. We were also seeking, there was also one of the review letters mentioned a potential variance for accessory structure setback for the canopy, but the canopy is actually part of the building. It's structurally connected to the building, the steel's structurally connected. So it's our interpretation that we meet the 25-foot side yard setback for a building at the canopy, which is set back approximately 28 feet from the...
Can I just ask our planner to comment on that, please?
Yeah, I would agree. The canopy is actually an extension of the principal structure, so when you measure from the canopy, it's 28.48 feet, I believe. 25 foot would be required for a principal structure, side yard or rear yard setback. So they actually comply, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I just have to ask you one question to make Mr. Schneider feel good. You are putting bollards in front of every space that faces the building.
Yes, we are. We are showing bollards in front of every space that faces the building.
Yeah, well, on the
both
11 by 17s, that dot is a little bit hard to see.
They're a little small. I can see them on the big screen up here. So, yes, I believe that was a comment we received before, and those have been added. So.
But on the north side, you don't show bollards there.
We will add bollards as necessary if required by the township.
Now, you're going to add bollards in front of every spot that fronts into the building?
Yes. Yes, we will do that.
Okay.
We are also requesting several design waivers. Like I said, we discussed the lighting design waivers that we're
So
requesting.
just on the lighting, the report does cite section 188-22, but it cites it only for the light and the average light intensity. There's another section of 188-22 that talks about the light spillage. So it's not an additional section, but it's an additional requirement within section 188-22 that you would need relief from.
Okay, yes. Yes.
We can address that through your testimony and through our planning testimony as well.
Okay. So correct, we will need a design waiver from section 188-22 for the little bit of spillage that we do have off the property into the parking area behind the site. As we discussed previously, or as I discussed previously, section 188-106F1A, which requires the width of driveways to be 30 feet. We are proposing a 25-foot width, which, like you said, we modeled emergency vehicles to the site, and they're able to navigate the site with the 25-foot driveways, and the Township's Fire Bureau had no objections to our proposed plan. We are requesting a design waiver from section 256-5A4. We do have a monument sign at the corner of the site, at the intersection of Aldrich and Route 9. We tried to push it back as far into the site as we could, but the requirements are for it to be 10 feet from the property line and 20 feet from the highway right-of-way line, where we're providing 1.24 feet off the property line and 18.77 feet from the property line. But like you said, we pushed it as far back into the site as we could, which was also, it's right next to a drive aisle, so we couldn't obviously move it back any further. But we do have it as far back as we could.
Is that something that the DOT is going to end up commenting on?
It's outside of their right-of-way.
It is.
So, yeah, it's...
I didn't know if because it was so close to the signalized intersection that they...
Laura, could you, on the
That's okay.
screen, show where that monument sign is?
Other intersection. You can barely see, it's a little, just kind of shown as a little line, right? Yeah, there we go, right there. It's a 4-foot high monument
It's that
sign.
bar.
Right, it's this bar.
Yes.
I zoomed into it too close, I wanted to kind of give a little real world.
That's correct, that's it.
Chief, do we have any accidents that could potentially be affected by, or would hit that monument sign there?
If I can step back, so regarding signage, we are, like I said, the next section that we're requiring a design waiver from is 256-5B1, because we have more than the permitted amount of signs that are allowed. We are proposing 2 wall signs and the 1 monument sign. So we have 3 total, where 2 are provided, or 2 are permitted. We have a wall sign on both street elevations. It's a Chase Wordmark with their octagon logo. And then we have the monument sign on, at the intersection of Aldrich and Route 9. The next design waiver that we are requesting is from...
Is your rendering R2 and R3 representative of the location and size of those proposed signs?
Yes, yes.
And you feel that you need to have the sign on the Aldridge Road side to be that big?
It's a standard Chase sign. You know, we want obviously the bank to be visible. Signs on both frontages are typical not only in the township, but, you know, in the area. It's fairly typical of what's around there, but yes, we would love to have a sign on Aldrich Road. We feel it would benefit our customers coming down Aldrich Road, or as well as coming southbound on Route 9. They might be able to see that as well.
How the board thinks, but in my opinion, I think the sign in the front is fine. I just think the sign on the side is Aldridge should just be a little bit smaller. Just don't think it needs to be that big. Our ordinance doesn't allow these many signs. And if we're going to give them some relief, I believe that they should have some relief. I agree they need something on that side because they front another road. I just don't think they need something that large. It's huge. It takes up more than 50% of the width of the bank.
What's the negative impact?
Then why do we have an ordinance that only allows 1 sign?
Because ordinances don't always fit all models, and that's
Well,
why
I'm
they
just
come to
asking
board.
why we have it. We have it
That's
so
why.
that we don't litter buildings with a ton of signs.
Is the sign the same size for both elevations?
Yes, it is.
I'm looking at R1, Brian, and I'm not terribly bent out of shape about that.
It's my opinion.
How much do you exceed our ordinance by?
Again, it's not the area that exceeds the ordinance,
number.
it's the number of signs.
Right,
So
okay.
I would say, you know, the sign is roughly 57.9 square feet in size.
And
A
our
lot of
ordinance-
ordinances say 25% of your facade from the first floor down. Why they're seeking relief is the number. So we have the ground sign, and then we have 2 building-mounted signs. It's not an issue relative to the area.
Right, I was just trying to address Mr. Tannenhouse's comment. So according to our ordinance, understanding what you just said, does the sign size comply with our ordinance?
Yes, it does. Size is compliant, just like as your engineer mentioned. It's just the number of signs where we exceed the number of allowed signs by 1.
Mr. Chairman, though, I just have to, you know, when the board's considering it, that sign size assumes that you have a compliant number of signs. So I don't know that we can say you have a compliant sign size when, you know, that size is dependent upon the number that you have. There may be, I mean, they've placed reasons on the record as to why it may be appropriate, but I don't know that we can call it compliant.
Okay. I was just concerned that I was trying to see if the sign size, understanding what you just said, was well above what was permitted by the ordinance. It would be like a double shot at a request for relief. But from what I'm hearing, the size is okay, it's just the number of signs. And I agree with Mr. Nacastro. I have no issue with the two facades. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that the applicant's not asking for one to be seen from northbound Route 9 as you approach.
If I
Tree-
could,
the
Mr.
trees are
Chairman, we
blocked.
spent a lot of time at our technical meeting talking about their sign package, and I had cautioned them. I think they did initially want to have signage over there, and I started to think that then we were entering the sign pollution realm. If we have one ground sign at the intersection, you could see that as you're approaching, they have one on the front facade and then one on the side. So in fairness to the applicant, they did
Thank
try. And at our
Yeah.
technical meeting, I told them that I thought that that was really pushing the limit.
Right. Well, we agree with you on that one.
Good, yes.
We agreed as well. We
yes.
removed signs from the
Originally, we had
application,
proposed
so.
3-wall signs. We had a different styled monument sign, which potentially triggered a variance for height. Like I said, we took all of the professionals' comments very seriously and went back and redesigned our signage package prior to doing our final submission to this board to go down. So we just had that one additional sign, but because it was so important to us to have the monument sign and the 2 wall signs on the 2 frontages, that's why we still sought that variance. And then unfortunately, the monument sign, by virtue of its location, like our engineer testified to, we moved it back as far as we could, but we felt that this was the minimum amount of signage to move forward with, but did eliminate all other variances that we were originally seeking for signage.
Let me just, Nick, what do you think? 2 signs?
Fine.
Brian, I know your opinion.
No, my opinion.
Bob, I know yours.
Fine.
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 Paul?
I kind of understand Brian's point. I'm kind of undecided about it.
Okay. 2 signs?
2 signs.
There it is. We'll give you the relief for the 2 signs.
Thank you. We greatly appreciate it. The
I
next
should say
design.
the 2 signs plus the monument sign.
Thank you.
Right.
The next design waiver that we are requesting, there is a requirement that driveways are set back, the center line of the driveways are set back 30 feet from the property line. We do not meet this requirement for our Aldrich Road driveway. It is the center line is 22 feet off the rear property line. We feel this is a better location for the driveway. We'd like to have it as far away from the intersection as possible. It is better for vehicular circulation, for emergency vehicle circulation as well. But like I said, we'd like to keep it back there because it's better for circulation. It's like I said, it's better to have it further away from the intersection of Aldrich and Route 9. Not that we can't turn left out of there anyway, but it's the more optimum location.
So I'm going to give you some real agita now, okay? Coming in from Aldridge Road, if I elect to go straight south, all right, and I can't find a parking space, I encounter a do not enter. Now, I will tell you, probably the majority of the people are not going to try to back down that aisle to come around to the front or to the north side of the building, all right? I'm concerned about a conflict of a driver going past that do not enter and the traffic coming from either the ATM, the drive-through, or coming around from the south end of the building.
So your concern is, if I make sure I get this right,
Yeah, as
coming
you
in
come
off,
in,
coming
all
in
right,
straight here, and they can't find parking behind the building.
Right.
I would say that's probably a very rare occurrence. I think most of the people will be coming off Route 9, and they'll probably park along the front and side.
How are you with respect to the number of parking spaces?
We're overparked on the
You're
site.
overparked.
Yeah, we are
Right.
overparked. We can.
Would you be adverse to converting this to a one-way counterclockwise circulation? And the reason why I say that is it eliminates that conflict that we just spoke about. It could potentially move the driveway a little bit a little bit west, which would eliminate the request for the waiver. And it might also give the ability to increase the amount of pervious area and bring it closer to the 70%.
I think it'd be something we'd be amenable to looking at. Like I said, I think the majority of their customers will probably come in off of Route 9. I don't think like I said, we are overparked, so I don't see there being an issue. I personally don't, in my experience working on banks like this,
There's generally parking available. We kind of park it, we like to have the amount of parking that we're proposing, which is, I believe we have 23 spaces, because that's the worst-case scenario if every employee has a customer and there's customers at the teller line. Although that rarely happens, but that's where we would be at approximately about 23 parking spaces needed. But you're saying you would like us to visit, it's having it one-way circulation around this way.
Well, do you need a one-way around the whole circulation, Mr. Chairman, or just in that area?
Have a do not enter here so that they're forced to go right, come around. That would be.
And then the other parts?
Okay, I can accept that if you made the spaces on the east side of the back side of the building angled so that you didn't get somebody who didn't pay attention to the do not enter sign. He would be confronted with parking in the wrong direction. Keep your parking on the north and on the
Angle
east
this,
and on the west
angle
side.
this,
Angle that
or
one,
that.
so that with the do
Right.
not enter.
Yeah, that'd be something we'd be amenable to looking at. We'd probably lose a space or two, but.
And then that would allow you, since it's a one-way aisle, to slide that, to make the aisle closer.
You're saying to slide this down?
Yeah,
possibly.
exactly.
It might be, but one thing, like I said, we do want to make sure that emergency vehicles can get in and get out, so it's something we'll have to take into account too. But we will.
Well, I'm not saying you have to change the actual driveway, all right? All I'm saying is, once you get onto the site, you're not going to change the radius as the incoming on that north drive.
Oh, I see, yes, I agree, I see what you're saying. Yes, yeah, that would be something we'd be amenable to looking into.
So as,
Mr. Nash, are you looking to pull that driveway closer to the light intersection?
I'm trying to get it a little bit closer off the property line. The driveway would not,
This
the
driveway.
west side of the driveway would not change.
You don't feel that having the driveway as close east as possible would be safer from the intersection?
I'm trying to make it comply with our ordinance.
Got it. I'm wondering if the safety of having it farther away from the intersection is
I mean, we're talking a couple of feet here.
overruling.
We're not talking about a big change.
Understood.
So that would be a condition of the approval if we acted favorably.
Are you going to just issue preliminary tonight? Because there's like at least 3 major things that this board is asking for that I would think that you would want to review before giving final, right?
I think that we're going to discuss that item before we actually take the vote,
Okay.
see where the application goes.
So, can you just reiterate that, Mr. Chairman, on the?
So they would convert the parking on the back side of the building, which is the east side of the building, to be one way for traffic traveling from the south to the north. And that will reduce that easterly drive aisle.
Well, are you saying, we would still maintain that 25-foot width of the drive aisle, but I think what you're saying is that 25-foot would shift closer to the building.
Okay, I'm sorry we interrupted your testimony.
No, that's fine. That's what we're here for, to discuss these things. There was another, in the planner's report, that another design waiver from section 256-5A6, requiring directional signs to be set back 20 feet from the property line. We have a directional sign, it's at the Aldrich Road driveway that is approximately 13.75 feet off the property line. That's like I said, we moved it as far back as we could. It probably doesn't show on this plan. It would show on the site plan. It would be probably underneath where that tree is, but it's a directional sign that's it's code compliant by size. It's just location is a little bit too close to the property line. But we would like to ask to have that directional sign because it does direct incoming customers on where to go to drive up to the ATM and things like that. So and I can show you what those directional signs look like. They are these, on our sheet CD3, but there's several directional signs that are proposed there that just direct customers around the
I'm
site.
sorry, what drawing is that?
That's drawing CD-3, construction detail sheet 3.
It's the ninth sheet in Exhibit A12.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more time, the drawing number?
It's the, as Mrs. Porter mentions, the ninth sheet in the packet, but is titled sheet CD3. Signage details.
Again, it's a little difficult to read the dimensions. How high are those signs?
Those signs are 3-foot overall height
From the
from the ground to the
ground
top of the
up
sign.
to the
Yeah,
top
from
of
the
the
ground to
sign
the
is
top of the
3
sign.
foot?
Yeah, from the ground to the top of sign. The actual sign itself is 1 foot 8 inches by 1 foot 4 5/8 inches.
And Mr. Chairman, I believe it's important, the location of this sign, because it goes to the last point that we were speaking about in terms of cars entering the site off of Aldrich Road, in order to direct them in the location of where the ATM is and how to get to it. It's their first point of contact when they pull into the site to know that in order to get to the bank, they need to circulate and make that right versus going straight to the MTM. It will be pointing them in the direction of making that right-hand turn so that it doesn't cause the conflicts and they don't interfere with the traffic that's going through the drive-through.
And they're asking for a waiver just for the location of the sign?
I think it's still on the number.
That's a direct, that's
Go ahead.
that's directional sign. I didn't think that, it was our interpretation that that didn't count towards the overall number of signs, which are the wall signs and the monument sign.
We noted it within ours, but I would agree that it is directional, and our ordinance does permit directional signage to be placed on the site.
So he's saying that the ordinance requires
20 feet, for them to be stepped back 20 feet from the property line, where we have 13.75 feet.
And the location was determined how?
Could we have one on the entrance off of the Aldrich Road driveway? So we want customers, when they are coming in off that driveway, just to be directed to where they need to go for the drive-up ATM, or where they need to go for
Yeah,
the...
but I'm asking, how did you figure out it had to be 13 and a half feet?
We moved as far back from the property line as we could. It's in a landscape island, and that's about as far back as we can move it.
Okay.
And that's a list of, sorry, that's, any more discussion on that? I was going to pull up a plan. You can see it, like I said, it's,
You okay with it, Brian? Paul? Yeah, okay. Everybody's okay with that.
thank you. Just moving on, I just wanted to address some of the comments in your engineer's review letter that we've received dated August 29th. They requested we give some information on operations. We've gone through some of that, but just briefly, it's 8 to 12 employees will be located in this building. They will be open from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays, closed on Sundays. Regarding vehicular circulation, we spoke about that. like I said, we don't expect, like I said, large delivery trucks. They frequently will have, or occasionally will have their armored car comes, but they just park in a normal parking space for approximately half hour to do what they need to do. We will look at the circulation of the site and the potential of changing that eastern drive aisle to a one-way drive aisle. Regarding refuse management, like we mentioned this before, but the cleaning crews take out the garbage nightly. Sensitive documents are removed off-site and shredded by a third party. We also, as we mentioned, this is a gas station. It is operating. Chase has had a Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental study completed with no issues encountered. But
I'm sorry, you skipped over the mandatory recyclables. How are we going to handle that?
Like I said, the cleaning crews take out the recyclables on a nightly basis, and then the shredded documents, which are paper, are recycled off-site by a third party.
So the cleaning crew is going to handle all
Yeah.
the refuse?
Yes, they'll handle it, which is just the waste from their employees' garbage cans during the day, so, and the restrooms and things like that. Regarding.
I guess Laura and Ron, so we fully understand that the existing owner or the owner is responsible for the environmental cleanup when the removal of the tank and any remediation. How do we handle that?
So there's a couple aspects to that. One, if there's an approval, every application is subject to obtaining all outside agency approvals. Whether this particular applicant is responsible for securing, the RAO, doesn't matter who's supposed to get it. If there's an RAO that's necessary, whoever is supposed to get it needs to get it, in order for the site to work. But also, whether it's through your testimony or through your environmental testimony, I think we just need to confirm that you don't anticipate that there's anything in the cleanup that would modify the location of any structures or anything else that's on the plan.
That's correct. I will let our environmental professional testify in more detail to that, but that's our understanding.
All right. But it doesn't, Mr. Chairman, it doesn't matter who's responsible. If there's an RAO that's necessary for the site, whoever is supposed to get it, that's going to have to be submitted to the board.
Understood. Is it under this jurisdiction of this board to ask questions? And does this board have the ability to express concerns about the remediation and the construction process with the potential contaminated soil?
The answer is yes, but it should always relate back to those things that are within the board's jurisdiction. So questions about the environmental remediation are very germane to what the board is doing in terms of, does it impact stormwater management on the site? Does it impact the location of structures on the site? Is there going to be a cap that, wouldn't allow parking in a certain area? Those things involve not only the environmental cleanup, but also involve how the site is going to be designed and implicates the board's site plan jurisdiction. The board can certainly, seek to understand the process and can express some concern if it wishes to, but with regard to the power that it has in the process, the site remediation has to relate back somehow to those issues that are within the board's jurisdiction under its site plan review.
Okay, thank you.
And we did bring our environmental consultant, the project manager, in connection with a number of Chase sites who will be able to speak to and give the board a general understanding of the existing site conditions and what the expectations are. She will also speak to an RAO that was issued in 2012 in connection with this site, and so she will be able to give the board some background. I agree with the board attorney that, it is within the board's purview to ask certain questions, but also, it is our position as well that environmental remediation and all those requirements are heavily regulated by the state, and by law, the property owner is required, to the extent that any contamination is discovered with regard to the removal of tanks or otherwise at the site, to clean it up, and it's in Chase's interest entirely to make sure, absolutely sure, that that happens, because we wouldn't take control of the site otherwise to commence our construction until that takes place.
I was just, I'm hearing what you're saying, Counselor. It was just that because it is a third party, if you will.
Right, I completely understand, because we're dealing with the fact that it's controlled by essentially a third party, and we're the party before the board.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay.
Another comment that, from the engineers letters they wanted us to comment on was buffering and screening. As we discussed earlier, we are proposing a significant amount of new landscaping with new landscaping around the entire perimeter of the site and proposed street trees on Aldrich and Route 9. We do have our landscape architect with us that can provide more details on the landscaping, but we are proposing a significant landscaping increase on this site. We discussed wall signs. We are proposing 2 wall signs and 1 monument sign. And regarding, you did mention stormwater management. One thing I did want to mention is that by virtue of all this landscaping that we are proposing, our site we do result in a decrease in stormwater runoff rate and volume, and we do meet all requirements. We did submit a stormwater management report with our submission. This is not considered a major development by NJDEP standards, since it's well under an acre, but we do meet the township stormwater management requirements. Regarding compliance with the performance standards and Article 4 of the code, noise impacts, obviously it's a bank. We don't anticipate any noise impacts from a bank. Will probably be less of an impact than the existing site, which has cars and vehicles being serviced. Glare, no impacts from glare. I think we did mention we do have a little bit of light spillage off the site, even though we have some house side shields on the light poles, but we don't anticipate any negative impacts from glare. Pollutants, as we were just discussing, our environmental professional can discuss what's there, but pollutants, solid and liquid waste from this site, like I said, it's a typical bank. There are no impacts anticipated from a bank. It's just operates as a typical bank. I also did mention there are existing sidewalks that we are improving some of the sidewalks on there and replacing some of them, but there will continue to be sidewalks around the site, as well as we are proposing a new access to the building from the sidewalk along Route 9, so customers walking along Route 9 could access the building in an ADA compliant manner. And we are also in the process of gaining several outside approvals, as we mentioned, NJDOT, the Soil Conservation District. We did get a letter of no interest from the county, no objections from the Fire Bureau, we just received something from the Farmers Advisory Commission today that didn't have any comments, and we will get all necessary outside agency approvals as discussed.
Nick, has the Environmental Commission reviewed this?
Yes.
Any objections?
I will speak with the LSRP.
Okay.
And I believe that's all I had as far as my testimony, unless there are any questions of anybody from the board.
Board have any questions? No, I think we've flattened you enough. At this time, I will open it to the public. If the public has any questions for the engineer, please step forward. Ms. Dixon, are you going to ask questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask Ms. Dixell, if you want, you can sit down, but, we're not swearing you in because you're asking questions, but I just need you to get closer to the microphone.
Sure.
So if you want to take a seat, you certainly can.
Walking is not good these days.
Okay, Ms. Dixell, if you just
State
state and
my
spell
name.
your name for the record?
Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. Dixel as in Larry. I need to ask you a question. Why do you think that Chase Bank needs to put another bank in Howell Township? When you
I
already
don't
have
think
a
that's-
Chase Bank on Route 9 South and West Farms Road in the Home Depot Shopping Center, don't you think they're gonna be competing against each other?
Ms. Dixell, all right, this is an engineer, all right? I don't think he's qualified to answer that question.
Well, actually, Mr. Chair, whether he's qualified or not, the ordinance permits, the use on the property. So the issue of whether it's a good business decision or not, is not one for this board. It may succeed, it may not succeed, but our board has very tightly circumscribed jurisdiction, which is, does it satisfy the requirements of the ordinance? So we're not allowed, under the law, to consider whether they have, too many.
Any other questions you would like to ask
No,
of the
I
engineer?
can't ask anything else?
No, you can ask, I don't know what else you want to ask. I'm just saying
Well, don't
that
you think
particular question.
Don't you think it's a waste of Chase Bank's resources and money to go invest heavily? And I'm sure it's gonna cost you a lot of money.
Isn't that the
to
same?
Put another bank in-
That's the
We
same
just
question.
said, Ms. Dixell, it's a permitted use. That's why it's in front of this board, all right?
It's too bad, these two banks are 2 miles away, 2 miles away from each other. What
that's-
a waste of money.
That's Chase's prerogative. It's a permitted use.
Too bad. Too bad for them, too bad for their customers, because they're spending a lot of money. They maybe should
Do you
move
have any
someplace else.
engineering
No, thank
questions
you.
of the engineer?
No, I don't. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to ask questions of the engineer? Seeing none, I'll close that public portion, and let's move on to your next witness.
Mr. Chair, just before we get to the next witness, it's almost 9:30. This application is going to take more than the 45 minutes we anticipated. So the board, if it wants to, can make a decision. Gill Petroleum has one witness tonight, which is their traffic, and there'll obviously be some cross-examination. This applicant will need to, in some manner, submit some kind of revised circulation plan. So I don't know if the board wants to bring them back, and they can do that, and they could be finished in a subsequent night if we want to keep moving forward tonight. But if we keep moving forward with this application tonight, you may want to ask counsel for Gill Petroleum, if they want another night or whether they want to hang out.
So I spoke with Mr. Alfieri, and Mr. Alfieri, he only has his traffic engineer here tonight. Correct me if I misspoke, if I misspeak.
So you had it right, Ms. Smoke.
Oh,
Yes, we do have only one witness, our traffic engineer.
so you will be coming back.
Yeah, we're coming back either way, so we have no problem if you want to carry us to another night.
I would prefer, if you have that representation, that we finish off this application and get another one out of the way,
That's fine.
all right?
What
So-
dates we have available, Barb? Eileen? Barb?
September 19th has 3 applications scheduled. October 3rd is your KHOV application.
October 3rd, K. Are you K-Hub? Oh, all right. Yeah, all right.
You want to do that?
Can we have that? We're going to be here anyway.
What do we have on October 3rd?
KHOV, which is what?
That's it?
That's it right now.
With a interlocking set of professionals for both applications. So that seems to work on a number of different levels.
Right. I just wanted to make sure we weren't too loaded. Okay, so we'll
I just
carry you
need an
to...
extension of time.
We'll give the board extension through the end of October, and we're going to need to announce.
Right. All right, so case number SP-1006 for Gill Petroleum Incorporated be carried to the board's October 3rd, 2019 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here in the main meeting room at Town Hall. There'll be no further notice to property owners.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. And thank you for entertaining and continuing to entertain our application this evening. Next for our testimony, we'd like to have our architect, Mr. Jones, from Core States Group.
Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Sorry. Patrick Jones, J-O-N-E-S. I'm a senior project architect with the Core States Group. I have a bachelor's of architecture and a bachelor's of building science from Rensselaer. I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey since '97, and I have testified before numerous boards in both New York and New Jersey, and I've overseen numerous.
I just want, is that mic on?
Pardon me?
Is the mic?
You
Goes in and
You
out.
have to hold it real
Yeah.
close.
you have to, yeah.
Real close? Okay,
Yeah.
oh, there we go,
Thank
okay.
I'm sorry, you said you are a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey,
Yes,
and your license is current,
yes,
and there's no actions against you or prior
No.
actions? We'll accept him as an expert in architecture.
okay, thank you. Just want to cover some basics for the building. This is a prototypical one-story linear design Chase Bank. It measures 74 feet in the north and south direction and 45 feet in the east and west direction. It has an attached drive-up ATM canopy, which measures 1610 in the north-south direction and 21.2 in the east-west direction. The footprint of the building is 3,028 square feet. The overall height is 26 feet 5 inches from the finished floor to the peak of the hip roof. Typical with the Chase design, the overall design theme with the Chase branches is to create visual interest with the use of layering of materials and architectural relief in the building facades. This can be seen in our drawings EL1 and EL2. I have EL1 up here just for reference, since I'll be speaking, I'll be speaking about the bank in general, but I'm referring to this exhibit in detail. The layering effect can be seen in the materials. We have a limestone base. We have got a brick midsection, and we've got an ephes top section to the building. The architectural relief can be seen in all the facades of the building, with the shadow lines created by the different planes and the different recesses in the building. This can be seen again in both of our elevations. The majority of the building has a flat roof with parapets. These parapets screen the mechanical equipment that are located on the roof, and they also provide a bit more of architectural relief in the height of the building. There's a tower that I mentioned before, the overall height being 26 foot 5 from the main level of the building. This tower denotes the main entrance, which is facing Route 9. This tower is used to, as I mentioned, denote the main entrance and create a street appeal. This tower also has there's also a canopy over this entrance here, and there's also a metal canopy that it splits this tower piece, this middle piece, both in the front and the back, where we have another entrance to the building. The canopy in the front, where the tower or the hip roof is, has a blue light that shines up on the canopy. This blue light is dimmable, and it is something that Chase will work with the town on getting the right light levels for use.
So just before you go on, what you're referring to up there is a color rendering of the previously submitted architectural plan?
Sorry, yes, this is the
All right,
color
so let's-
rendering
let's-
EL-1.
Oh, that's part of A12?
Exhibit A10.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the 10th and 11th sheets of the 13 sheets in A12.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, there is no, all the use of the building is restricted to the first floor?
I'm sorry?
All the use of the building is restricted to the first floor?
Yes.
Or are there offices within the tower?
No, there's nothing in the tower.
Nothing in the tower. So it's just cosmetic space up there?
It's just cosmetic, yes. Yep. It's just architectural detail to denote that entry.
Are you using scuppers for your secondary rain overflow, or are you proposing a secondary drainage system for your roof?
For the roof?
Yeah, for the roof drainage.
This all gets tied into to the main system.
So it's all interior roof drains?
Yes, it's all interior.
Because your rendering kind of indicates that it may be some scuppers or those light fixtures that I'm looking at on elevation -2, EL-2.
I think those are wall-mounted
Lights? or-
lights.
I'm sorry, we're referring to?
The silver boxes, are those the proposed scuppers or are those light fixtures? Yeah, that's
These
it.
right here?
Yep,
These are overflows.
those are the overflows.
Yeah, scuppers.
Okay.
Yeah. They're about a foot and a half up off the lower roof, back of house roof.
And where does, so you have an internal collection system. Where does that internal collection system discharge to?
It discharges underground. In this instance, I would have to,
To an underground?
Probably need the engineer back to ask that question.
the overflow, the internal,
The roof overflow.
I'm sorry, the internal drains. They go through the building, they come down,
From
and then
they connect to the stormwater.
the stormwater.
So you have an underground
Yes,
tank?
yes.
The only concern, the reason I brought up the scuppers is when there's an overflow, it goes out the scuppers. And with the rains that we've been having a lot lately, there's typically a lot of overflow. And being that this building has no true rear, really, it's visible on all four sides. At some point, there's going to be staining and other things that happen from that overflow. My concern is using the scuppers as a secondary overflow. The look of the building may be compromised. You may have some extra cleaning that you need to do on a regular basis to maintain the building.
Yeah, I mean, we have primary roof drains, and we have backup roof drains on the roof. They say backup, that
So then
they go up there and have them cleaned up.
So the scuppers probably are not required.
We've, in all the branches we've designed, I have not seen the problem of the rain coming out the scuppers.
Okay.
These elevations also that I wanted to note are different than the ones that were in the packet, in that we have shown the blue awnings, which are over a majority of the windows. These blue awnings can be seen on the north elevation facing Aldrich Road on drawing EL2, Exhibit A11. And there's a few awnings over the windows on the left-hand side of the building on the west elevation facing Route 9, as well as awnings over two windows on the right-hand side of the east elevation facing the rear parking lot.
I'm sorry, did you say that there was a rear entrance from the rear of the building?
There is a rear entrance, yes. That can be seen on the east elevation. It's just a single door. The majority, the main entrance of the building faces Route 9. That's with shown as with the double doors on the west elevation.
So that rear entrance will be locked and closed off completely when the building is closed, and the entrance off of Route 9, closest to Route 9, the west elevation, is where you'll have your 24-hour vestibule, right?
Yes, it has the ATM and the after-hours drop.
So you have an ATM both inside the building and in the outside of the building?
Yes, there are two ATMs in the lobby of the building, as well as one ATM in the vestibule, the front vestibule of the building.
Okay, so you don't have an ATM underneath the canopy.
There is no ATM on the outside underneath this canopy, no.
No, I'm talking about the canopy for vehicles.
The drive-up canopy?
Yeah.
Yes, there will be an ATM there. I was talking, I'm sorry, those were walk-up ATMs I was mentioning before.
And it's going to be an ATM lane and a conventional transaction lane?
Yeah, let me,
No, I think there's only one lane and a bypass.
That's what I'm trying to find
I can go back to
out.
the plans, but I'm pretty sure, I'll pull it back up. It's one lane, you can either ATM, I think that's it, or have teller service, and then there's a bypass.
correct.
Because I'm looking at the elevation, EL1, west elevation, and on the canopy, it appears to have a sign that says ATM, and then... is there-
Correct. There's a single drive-through lane under the sign that says ATM, and then on the outside of that brick column, that's where the bypass lane is.
So this is the ATM/teller window.
Right.
No, there's
No teller,
No, just
only
ATM.
ATM.
Just
So it's
an
only a
ATM,
drive-up
yeah.
ATM, and then a bypass.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so you don't have a drive-through.
It's a drive-through ATM.
Right,
It's a drive-through ATM.
yes.
Right.
Right, so, but there's no window there.
No.
No window, no vacuum
You're not having
tubes,
one
it's
of
just
those
an
tube
ATM.
No,
They'll be
no
able to
vacuum.
convert to physical therapy relatively easily.
Let's not go there, please.
All right.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer to Mr. Tannenhouse. There is, if I want to make a transaction from the car, and I'm not doing the ATM, all right, I can drive up and there's the gizmo to take the tube and bring it into the building?
No. No. So if I could, Mr. Chairman, I think they'll probably have operational testimony, but this isn't that type of bank operation. They'll probably speak to it, but it's an ATM drive-up, but otherwise it's more of a financial center. It's less of a banking center. It's more financial in nature, where people are coming in with appointments and meeting with consultants. So, and I only know that because we've sat through a couple concept meetings. So maybe we should hear from operational, but this isn't like, I'm going to go and do banking and tellering. I mean, it's an ATM, so you can deposit money, take out money, but most of the people, in my understanding, that are coming to this facility, it's more of a financial lending type environment, credit, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I can provide some testimony to how the plan, the bank works.
Well, I don't care who puts on the testimony.
Okay.
Just it would be helpful and clarifying, because I was under the impression that it was more of a conventional bank rather than a financial center.
No, this model for Chase is more financial services oriented than banking. We don't have, there's no vacuum tubes. It's the ATMs and the personal one-to-one.
Okay.
Was that your mindset when you wanted the circulation change?
No,
Would
the
that would change
circulation,
your-
no, that wouldn't change it.
So I'll move on to the floor plan now and the layout. The floor plan is designed as an open plan with no interior columns. This makes the space conducive to the financial services offered by Chase and the collaborative interaction between the employees and their clients. The building interior is accessed through the main entry vestibule, which I mentioned before is facing Route 9. This is the 24-hour 24-hour transaction vestibule, where it has the ATM and the after-hours drop, and it has Amazon lockers located there. And there's also a rear entry vestibule off the parking area in the back. Upon entering the main space, you will enter the open plan lobby space where there is a living room area for clients to wait, open booths for consultation with clients, ATMs, 2 more ATMs, and a DAB area, which is a digital advice bar area. And this is where you will be greeted, by a Chase advisor when you walk through the door. At the perimeter of the main space, as I mentioned before, we have the booths, which are located on the east side of the plan. And working your way around, there are the PCS rooms, which are the, private consultation space offices on the north side of the plan. And the west side, there's another PCS booth and a CMS, which is a casual meeting space where the Chase advisors can meet with their clients. In addition to these spaces, there is what we call the back of house space to the south of the building. In this back of house space, we have the manual transaction area, the lounge space, the restrooms, print file room, and other back office rooms. And I think that's it for my testimony.
Could you just speak briefly in terms of the building code requirements as it
Sure.
relates specifically to the number of employees and how that relates really to the amount of parking we're providing?
Yes, thank you. Based on the use group for this building, which is Financial Services Bank, and the size of the building, 3,028 square feet, per the construction code, this is designed for one person per 100 square feet. And this building is designed to use every last bit of that space for those people. There will be between 8 and 12 employees, with a maximum of 12 employees at the peak time. At peak time, these employees, we'll be working with approximately 10 clients at a time. And at peak times also, there will be 6 people waiting to be helped, and assume 2 to 4 people using the ATMs, using the ATMs and accessing the Amazon lockers in the front entry vestibule. And this maxes out to 30 people at this branch, and the occupancy load of this building at peak times.
And you have 23 parking spaces.
Correct.
23
30
parking
people.
spaces.
Correct.
Could you explain to me what an Amazon locker is, please?
I'm not sure exactly how it works, but when you order something from Amazon, rather than having it delivered to your home, they'll deliver it to this locker, and then they will email you the location and the code to go to the locker once your package has arrived, and you can key in the code and pick up your package.
And I sure hope this doesn't open up a can of worms, but we just heard testimony from the engineer that there wasn't going to be a need for a loading and unloading space. So if we have constant Amazon deliveries to the bank to fill the lockers, then do we now have a problem with UPS truck hanging out in the parking lot?
They may need to clarify whether you can actually get an Amazon delivery here or it's only for Amazon returns.
Those
Yeah,
Amazon
I had
returns.
thought it was just returns as well, based upon my understanding.
Okay.
That it was for the ability of Chase customers who had an Amazon return, similar to like a variety of other retail places, like Kohl's, for example, accepts returns. If you get a product, you want to return it, rather than you having to mail it yourself, you simply put it in the locker, and then it gets shipped back to Amazon.
But either way, it's still going to increase the frequency of having a large truck having to navigate the site to pick up those boxes, and we don't have any queuing spot in the drive aisles to accommodate that truck.
So most of the Amazon delivery vehicles now are those, I think they call them oversized vans, really.
Well, it could be if it's an Amazon, or it could be UPS that's picking up, or it could be the United States Post Office. FedEx. I don't know where, I don't know where I'm going with this.
I'm just a little bit more concerned, all right, is that...
I don't want to leave it. I mean, we got a lot of...
Brian, I'm a little bit more concerned about, we just heard that they're going to have 30 people.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, that we're gonna have, it's going to be a full parking lot on a regular basis, and now we got to fit a UPS truck.
That's the max occupancy of the building, so that would be to the extent that every single service is being utilized to its absolute maximum capacity. That's the max occupancy of the building. That's not intended to be the daily operations at the site. So if that was the testimony, you
With all
know,
due respect, Counselor, that's not what your architect said. It's anticipated that you're going to have 12 employees servicing 10 clients, plus 6 queued.
That is at peak times.
At peak time.
Well,
All right,
with all due respect, all right, maybe we can get somebody from the bank who actually knows the operation, all right, rather than the architect
Right.
trying to surmise.
we have a representative from Chase who
So we'll
can
table
certainly
it.
provide operations testimony.
Fine. Is that all your testimony?
That's it?
Does the board have any questions?
We're talking about Amazon packages, what size packages, and that's going to determine the size of the truck?
Well, I think that's going to come from the operations.
The operation, okay.
All right, and he'll still be here, so if we don't get it out of the operations manager, then we'll circle back with you.
And they did say that the back door would be locked during business hours?
No.
It's open? Chief, does that let them, is that a good
But-
operation of the back door and front door of a
But
bank?
Tom, it's not a bank per se, it's a financial center.
I understand that, but they have ATM machines and there's money there.
And I'm assuming that they're going to have all the normal provisions that a bank.
And they have 2 windows there where transactions are being done, so it is a bank.
As for the tactical aspect of it, you want that. You just don't want it to be a single
Okay.
entrance.
Okay.
You want it to be surrounded by windows, you want multiple points of view, you want that.
Okay. I want your input on that. Okay.
Does the board have any other questions? All right, seeing none, I will open it up to the public. Anyone who would like to come up and ask questions of the architect? Seeing none, we'll close that portion. I think at this point, it would be beneficial to bring up your operations individual.
Absolutely, that was my next question to the board. Would you like me to, rather than going to our landscape architect, to bring our Chase representative up so that we can address the operations question? Great.
Better over here? Can you hear me?
I just need to swear you in first, sir. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Richard Dordas, D-O-R-D-A-S.
Can we understand what his position is?
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Dordas, could you please describe your position and employment background with respect to serving as a project manager for Chase Bank?
Sure. I'm the Northeast Market Director of Construction for J.P. Morgan Chase. My responsibilities are turnkey from entitlement portion to actual construction of the branch. I handle, any type of permitting, any type of construction issues, any type from the spot choosing day to completion.
But you don't actually handle the day-to-day normal bank or financial center operations?
I do not, no.
See, I think, Counselor, with all due respect, that's what we're seeking.
I mean, I can speak to, I've been to enough planning board meetings and I do enough banks to know that while Patrick was speaking of 30 for max occupancy, with 8 offices, you're not always going to have 12 employees there. We have 4 or 5 on staff all the time, and then you'll have people that come in for meetings, wealth managers, private client managers. That's what the office portion is for. They'll bring meetings in. They want to grow the person of wealth management, so they'll have 4 or 5
Wait,
offices
the
at a
microphone,
time.
please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Normally, I'm loud enough. 4 or 5 offices at a time will be going. The booths are consultation spaces, and then standard teller spots, and then the EATMs are also. So we're never going to use 30 spots. We have yet to use 30 spots. I've opened over 50 banks in the total Northeast, but we require the 23 because we can get up to around 20, but we never use the full 30. He was speaking to the actual code of the occupancy. I mean, if you, we can bring someone back.
Well, and just to be clear, from an engineering perspective, there's no variance relief associated with parking for the use, so it does comply. What I thought there may be questions about is relative to now we're introducing the Amazon return use, and whether or not that was going to impact the parking.
Yeah, we will, as a normal business, they spoke to an armored vehicle a couple times a week, but we will get UPS deliveries or FedEx deliveries. We don't provide a loading spot for them. They pull into a normal spot. Normally, they'll pull into a drive lane. No, we get them just like any other business. We don't get big trucks. We get a normal UPS truck. We do.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Just, I think just to sort of amplify what Laura was saying before, it's not so much the nature of the UPS trucks, but I guess what you're advancing is that there's an accessory use now associated with the JP Morgan, which is this Amazon return service. And I don't think that the ordinance necessarily takes that into account when it developed or articulated the parking requirements. And when we're talking about the number of people that'll be on site, I think the testimony thus far has been limited to those people that are involved in the financial service aspect of it, not people that may be just coming to use the Amazon return portion of it. So I think what Laura was saying is we need a little additional information as to how that element of the use operates and, you know, what the traffic is associated with that and how many people, you know, are using that at any given point in time.
It's relatively new to Chase. Chase is reaching out to, they're doing dual, occupancies with Amazon, with coffee shops. So as far as how busy it is, it's kind of related to the area. I put an Amazon locker in North Brunswick. And, people come in, they drive in, they return it, and they leave. It's almost like an ATM transaction. It hasn't been huge in North Brunswick. I can't speak to how it will be in Howell. But it's relatively new. It's probably a year, 18 months.
And is it on, like Route 1 or something in North Brunswick?
I apologize. Yeah, North Brunswick on Route 1. We put one in there. I put one in Nyack, New York. Usually when I have an Everyday Express branch, which is a branch that doesn't have a telesystem in it, I will we'll put those lockers in. It's some kind of, I don't really understand the whole branding portion of it. But, they're starting to grow into that a little bit more. It's considered a normal teletransaction. So they walk in, they don't even go in the bank. They walk into the lobby, they do their thing, and then they leave. So.
I'm sorry. I hear what you're saying, Laura and Ron, but the representation now by this gentleman was that there are times when they bring people in for meetings and conferences and all of that. And I'm just trying to get a handle on, you may or may not know, is it once a month? Is it 3 times a day?
Oh.
All right, I'm trying to get a feel for is if it's just a very sporadic type of thing and, the 23 spaces you represented, you don't even utilize all those, or is this an ongoing occurrence that, is going to pose a problem? All right. Last thing I want to do is find out that we gave you approval and that we wind up with people having to park in the adjacent commercial parking lot because there's not enough spaces here. I don't know. It's just that I've heard conflicting testimony, all right, and I would like somebody to be able to nail it down.
I never saw one.
I understand that there's no relief sought for that, but I just want to make sure that we're accommodating what the real demand is.
Yeah, we don't, Chase doesn't feel that we need, we're going to need the 30 spots, and like I said, the Amazon is a normal transaction to us. So it's going to be a quick in and out. The people that come for the meetings are going to be there for an hour, so they're going to be parked to the side. The employees will be parked in the back. So,
Is there a size limit to this locker?
There's different, there is, no, it's just, it's like a bus locker. That's what it looks like to me. It's got a big blue bus locker that says Amazon on it, with a little keypad. So,
Do you offer is your cafe a free service to the clients coming in, or is that a pay for?
no, free service.
It's free.
Free service.
So there's no sandwiches or coffee sold? or-
Maybe you'll get something like that, or an event, but no, it's just, maybe some cookies, but mostly just, cafe.
So the only skirting towards more of a mercantile type of use is the locker. All the other aspects of the bank are still a bank.
Yeah, financial, we do normal banking, and then we do this financial private clients. Yes, correct.
Okay. Let's do charted territory. I think we need the applicant to provide some more data on it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, we're looking at a, inside this Chase Bank locker, all right? Got it off Google, and it seems to be that there's, I don't know, maybe 15 lockers here in this assembly, all right? I would be more comfortable, Counselor, if we got somebody who is a little bit more versed in the actual branch operation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 2 windows here that if I wanted to do my conventional banking, I could do it here.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So now, we've got a financial center, we've got some type of transactions that are going on that are separate from the financial. Now we've got this Amazon drop-off, all right? I just want to make sure it all works. I mean, yes, from an engineering standpoint, I understand you can get all this stuff in the building, all right? Just want to make sure that we've got enough capacity on the site
Understood.
and that the circulation's going to work. The last thing we want to do at this location is have people backing out onto either Aldridge Road or Route 9 North.
Agreed. The last thing we want as well.
So I don't know
We
where
can
you want
certainly
to go with
provide that
this.
testimony to the board.
Yeah, to be clear, you want testimony on the Amazon locker, or just the overall person who could speak to the branch operations as it relates to Chase and the Amazon locker?
Both.
Both? Okay.
We can bring the managing director of real estate in connection with
Yeah,
this deal, or
yeah.
some representative of Chase who can certainly speak
Of
to the
course.
day-to-day operations and exactly what's going to take place in the context of the differing uses and how they relate to each other.
Or a manager of a local similar bank.
Right.
Where's your closest one that's?
By Home
What?
Depot.
Well, that's
That's different.
Locker. You would want someone who has the Amazon lockers there to kind of talk to that.
The same model, where's the next closest bank with the same model?
With the Amazon, North Brunswick.
Yeah, financial center with Amazon.
Yeah.
Financial center bank. In North Brunswick?
Right.
There's one in North Brunswick, there's one in Nyack. The only problem with North Brunswick, it doesn't have tellers. It's called an Everyday Express branch. But, I mean, the gentleman could speak to how the operations work with they're probably going to be a market director who will come down and report, or an MDRE, a real estate manager. Probably the best person to talk to.
What about the pickup? Are it's going to have pickup also? Besides returns?
Amazon locker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr.
So
Schneider,
people,
if I could make a recommendation, so we can probably get this moving forward. The site engineer has some other things that they have to correct. If they could figure out a way of fitting a proper area to queue the delivery truck to make these deliveries, because he may be there for a period of time filling the lockers.
Can we clarify, this does not accept deliveries, isn't that correct? It only comes
It's a
to
return locker.
Yeah, but
returns,
this is, yes,
and
come
then
get them.
who picks it up? So what I think we need is the operation of who picks that up, how it's loaded, and how it's unloaded. But it does not accept packages being delivered. It's only, so I think all we need to hear is, a person goes in and drops it off, that's one vehicle. We need to hear how it gets picked up, whether it's, my experience has been it's usually by a mail truck. and they come in, they're specific to Amazon, and they come in and pick them up. But that's the testimony I think the chairman has said we need to hear.
Correct, and the site is so
Packages at
constrained,
home
where does that
or
truck sit while they're making
It's
this
not,
transaction?
but my experience is it's not a truck.
Well,
Well, no, I mean, I'm sorry, delivery.
we need to hear from the applicant.
It's UPS
All
or
of those things.
FedEx.
It's
or
something bigger than a car.
Some kind of
And a
parcel
van.
service.
I'm sorry?
How many times a day it'll be picked up?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't speak to that.
It's on the corner of Route 9 and Aldrich Road. Right.
I would, and the site is already small, so small already, and it's very constrained, and I just think if there was a spot for that delivery truck to park, and that person can do their transactions and not mess with the circulation of the site, I think that would go a long way.
Or work in that parking with the circulation of the site.
Either way, but I'm not the engineer.
I can also go back to Chase and see if this is not a good spot for an Amazon locker, based on comments that I'm hearing right now. It may not be a smart move. I can't make a decision.
We could look to
I can ask the
potentially just
question.
removing that element. It's simply an add-on for the site, but to the extent that it impacts the overall functionality and circulation of the site and causes concern for the board, we can certainly discuss it with Chase. But also, we're more than happy to bring an operations person back to give you additional testimony.
Well, we might not want to not have it, because if it benefits the residents of Howell, then it's a positive thing. Please, guys, let me finish. So I think just having clarity of how this operation works, since
that's
it's the first
fine.
one, is what we're asking for.
Right.
Okay.
We're going to come up with an Amazon locker again somewhere else.
Yeah, they're going in,
They're everywhere.
not just Chase.
They're very.
It's a safer place to put the box.
They have them outside 7-Elevens.
I think,
They're everywhere.
I don't know if there's any more use, though, to discussing it tonight. They're going to be coming back. They're going to have the level of clarity and detail that's necessary for the board to make an informed decision. Talking about what we think 7-Eleven may be doing with Amazon, I'm not sure that that is, advancing the application tonight.
No.
Right, so we can continue the discussion on that particular topic at a follow-up meeting once
Yeah.
we revisit the issue with proper testimony.
Okay, that'll be excellent. Board's a little tired right now, okay? So when can we bring them back?
Mr. Chair, we took a look, October 3rd, right?
17.
I'm sorry, October 17th. I was looking at the wrong one. October 17th is a light night for us thus far. The other nights between now and then have some large applications, some with objectors' attorneys and a lot of public. The 17th is a real night where, you would likely be able to conclude the application, if that's okay, counsel?
That's fine with us.
Okay.
When do we have a date for Monmouth?
Yeah.
Monmouth is on our next meeting,
On the
September
17th.
19th.
On the 19th. What
Correct.
else do we have on that night?
3G Corporation for sign waivers, and Tesla, which is electric charging stations at the Wawa on Route 33.
So let's put both of those before Monmouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Ron, would you make the application?
Sure.
The announcement, rather?
Case number SP-1062 of J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., be carried to the board's October 17th, 2019 meeting, beginning 7 o'clock here at Town Hall. There will be no further notice to property owners.
We agree.
Okay.
And we're okay on time, right? Okay. Thank you. All right. Master plan status report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, you and I had talked about the rezoning that we were going through. Are we at a point that you could present that as completed from your aspect to the Master Plan Subcommittee?
We are. I'm waiting for just a little bit of feedback about the FAC zone along Route 9, but I expect to get that within the next week or so. We could have a draft that's essentially complete, provided to the Master Plan Subcommittee, meet on, I think it's September 26th is the next meeting date. And then if you're comfortable, we could proceed in October with the actual hearing, if that would work.
Okay. So, remember the meeting we had that we discussed all those
Yep.
rezonings?
Yeah, I actually spoke to Mr. Herman yesterday. Yeah, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago. And he said that we were going to have something substantial to start looking at.
All right, so.
So we have September meeting.
So we'll schedule
It seemed like he was going to be ready.
Is that okay with you, Nick?
We're having the September meeting?
I would have
September
it.
Master Plan Subcommittee meeting.
Got it.
And then we'll have that presentation, probably want to do it the October 17th.
Could be the 17th, if that works.
Yeah. So it'll be 28th to the Master Plan Subcommittee and the 28th on the general meeting.
The 26th
The
of
20th.
September is your,
Right, I'm sorry. The 26th subcommittee meeting and the 17th of October.
So I just want to make sure, if that's the case, the actual draft is going to be ready and on file on the 7th?
Yeah, what we can do is accept comments at September 26th at that meeting, make updates and have it on file 10 or more days prior to the October
Gotta
17th meeting.
There's no choice. I mean, if we're going to do it the 17th, it's got to be on file.
Yeah,
The 7th.
that's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we
And
could
if
do
there's
that.
some reason that we can't meet that, Ron, we'll just push the public date.
Okay, because
So
we
the
also
next-
have to put a public notice in the paper, and that will have to be sent prior to the 7th, so that it gets published on the 7th.
How many days prior do you need?
Probably the 5th, we'd have to send it to the Asbury Park Press.
easily, yes.
The 4th or the 5th, probably the 4th, just to be
All right,
safe.
we'll come out of the September 26th meeting knowing whether we're going to go ahead with it.
Okay.
Any reason to go into executive session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make,
Mr. Boyle, second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Tannenhouse, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against? Thank you, gentlemen. Meeting adjourned.